This video is brought to you by MR Hi-Fi Reviews. We are driven to create high-quality, visually stimulating, and honest, informative reviews of personal audio, home audio, and technology, bringing you the latest and greatest news from the audio industry. Visit us at mrhifireviews.com.
What up, buddy? Good to see you. Happy weekend.
Yeah, happy weekend. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. I love your background. That is sick. It reminds me of, what's that video game on PS4 that I love so much? Ghost of Tsushima. It reminds me of like a world or like an area of one of the maps in Ghost of Tsushima.
I'm not sure where I got the photo. It's been in my background photo library forever. But yeah, using a new little program to get rid of the ceiling fan.
I love it, man. It looks fantastic. I dig it. So how's the weather out there in Colorado? Is it warm, cold?
It's warm. I actually turned on the air conditioning today for the first time
Nice.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
78 degrees out there, and it got pretty hot in the house, so I had to turn it on.
Epic. Yeah, it's pretty warm here too. It's getting in the 70s, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to it, actually. Got to turn all the sprinklers on.
Yeah, did a walk around the lake earlier today. That was fun.
Joe, what's up, buddy? Yeah, man. Why did
What's
you
up, Joe?
sell your PS4, dude? Ghost of Tsushima is the bomb. What'd you upgrade to, Joe? We'll find out. He'll drop it after the delay. Yeah, it's a fun game, man. The world play is just epic and beautiful. If you love Japanese, ancient Japanese, and feudal Japanese times, it's really cool. The whole samurai, ninja, Ronin world. It's a lot of fun. What's up? What's up? What's up? D-N-A-L-E-K-A-W. I had to spell it out. D-Nail-Ka? I don't even know how to say that altogether. That's a tough one. DNA Laka? You tell me. How do I do that one? What's up? Good to see you guys out there. This is going to be a fun one today. I'm always stoked to have the professor with me. And I know that we'll get some great impressions because we both actually have these headphones on right now, and we've both been listening to them. So,
Yep.
What's up, Sheldon? Yes,
Sheldon. What's up, buddy?
Love Sheldon, man. You guys are awesome. Sheldon, man, has got me. It was funny because Sheldon and I have very, very, very similar listening preferences. I mean, everybody's a little bit different because you and I are similar too, but I might maybe like a touch more treble and you might like a touch less treble, you know, or whatever it is. But we have these people that we line up with that are our audio buddies that we're pretty similar to. And Sheldon and I fall pretty close a lot of the times. Grumpy Goose, what's up, buddy? Man, Grumpy Goose makes the dopest headphone stands. Have you seen his headphone stands, Professor?
I think so. Were those put up on Discord?
Probably.
Okay.
But they are just, I mean, beautiful, like handmade, each one. I think he's going to make me one, and hopefully I'll be able to feature it into some videos for him.
That'd be cool.
I'm just going to call you DNA. Because he doesn't even know how to pronounce it either, which is funny. Kareem! What's up, brother? Good to see you, Kareem. Welcome, man. Thanks for coming and supporting. You guys are awesome. Let's see. Okay, cool. Good deal.
What's up, everybody?
So everybody knows me and everybody knows the professor. We're amongst good peeps right now. And, you know, so today's stream is going to be about... well, these beauties.
I have to admit, I love the colorway. I love the shiny, glossy black, and they're fantastic looking headphones.
I mean, they're my favorite Focal looking headphones I've ever seen, I think. I mean, the Utopias are really pretty too. I'll give it to the Utopias, but these are just stunning. The copper, the black. In fact, let's give everybody a little bit of love real quick and just show them really quick what they look like. Hold for this. I mean, they're sexy looking, aren't they? Those are
They
sexy
are.
looking headphones. I
And you do
okay.
some really good video work on there too. I
Uh
like a
Thanks,
lot of that.
brother. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I try. I had to do those ones kind of relatively quick, but they're actually tougher to photograph or film because they're so reflective. But that
Mhm.
reflection when you hold them in person is super beautiful too. So you can kind of see that
Yeah.
come through. So I think, whoa, we got a lot of new peeps who showed up. Zen Boy, what's up? Quinn, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Thank you, Headphone Show. Appreciate your support. Grumpy Goose. Yeah, he's in Canada, so he'll ship anywhere. His stands are dope. Check him out. Check him out. Drop your the name of your Instagram, Grumpy Goose, in the chat. JTB, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man. Awesome. Oh, the last Rhino. What's up, dude? Good to see
What's up,
you.
guys?
Marius, good to see you. Thanks for all joining, everybody. Appreciate it. Wasim, what's up, man? Good to see you as well.
So does it
So
make me a terrible audiophile that I didn't read any of those owner's manuals and all the stuff that you showed in your intro video?
I don't read any. I don't read any of them, to be honest. Well, sometimes I do before I do a full blown review. I'll go through the
Mm,
owner's manual to make sure if there's any key points that need to be, you know, mentioned in the full review. But I mean, I just
right.
did that just for the sake of B-roll for the for the unboxing, really. So
Right.
Leonardo, I love that name, Leonardo, and and Dawn, what's up? Good to see you guys. Thank you so much. So we're gonna we'll run this kind of similar to the way we've done with our live streams in the past. We're gonna start off. We might have this a little more structured though, which will be kind of nice. So we're gonna start off with build quality and discuss the build quality first of these. Scott, what's up, man? No worries about being late. Welcome, welcome, and congrats on the new house, Scott. Good to see you. Um,
Nice.
so
Congrats.
so build quality, I think. I mean, the stylizing, well, I think we both agree 100% that these are beautiful, beautiful
Mhm.
headphones from a looks perspective and a feel perspective. I think Focal literally hit a grand slam. They look amazing, even with the Bentley logo. A lot of people will say, "Ah, Bentley, I don't want to wear Bentley," and some people may not love that part about it. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me because I'm an
I
automotive
don't.
photographer.
I don't either because it's like on this
So
tiny little thing up here, and
it's
that's it. Like
it's
everything
it's
else.
it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Yeah, I agree. It's not
Yeah.
a big deal, and I love cars anyways. And Bentleys are dope rides. So
Mhm.
um, so we can probably just knock that out of the way, guys and gals. If you're considering these headphones from an aesthetic perspective, they're one of the best looking headphones I've seen. That's non ZMF. Okay, so that's something. Oh, and one other thing. If you scroll up in the chat, just for anybody that's really serious about buying these headphones, I left a link to the one and only open box pair left at headphones.com, and it's like $200 or $300 off. So just a nugget if you guys are considering that, or later in the chat you decide you do want to after hearing what we have to say. There's one open box left for $200 or $300 off. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's a discount. So just to let you guys know. So all right, so let's talk more about the build. So there's some good things about this build, and there's a few things that I think could be a little better. So let's start with you. What do you like about this build, Professor? And then I'll talk about my likes too, and then we can focus on maybe some of the areas that could maybe be improved a little bit.
So what I like about the build is it feels like it's a just tank. It's just built incredibly solid. It's pretty light as well, so I mean it doesn't really cause fatigue on your neck or anything like that. Um, and I mean there's not much that you can really criticize Focal for as when it comes to like build quality. Um, they look fantastic. They're made fantastic. If I had to nitpick, it would be that there might be a little bit more padding on top that you might want to add. And I personally would get rid of the um, cheese grater style, whatever fabric. It's yeah, that's not going to pick up on camera. Um, like the mesh. Uh, yeah, you might see it on yours. You got a far better camera. First, I would replace that with something that's just absolutely smooth. It doesn't need to have that. But then again, I'm going full on skin contact to the top of my head, and it might be a little irritating after a while. But honestly, I've worn these for 6 hours in a day, um, and no fatigue as far as that goes. So yeah, build is fantastic. Quality
Okay.
looks fantastic.
Good, very good. DP, thank you, man. I'm trying to look as radiant as I can. Thank you so much, Sleepy, for the super chat. Sleepy says he loves us both. We love you, Sleepy. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you and the
Thanks,
super chat
brother.
support. That helps keep this hard drive space being purchased. I love it, man. Thank you. Kareem, perfect. Yeah. So normally these sell for $12.90. They're on sale for that open box price right now in the link chat for $1,032. Thanks, Kareem. Appreciate it. All right, so my thoughts on the build and a couple things. So that kind of diamond style that you saw
Mhm.
on the headband up there is actually the reasoning behind that. It's actually, I believe, from my understanding, is part of the Bentley design. So I think that's why they incorporated it that way. So,
Okay.
I mean, all of this, like even the way this is all done, this is all
Mhm.
kind of like taken from the design signature of Bentley. So that's part of the reasoning. But yeah, that's a good point. It could kind of rub after a while, especially for us bald guys, right? So, what's
Yeah.
up? What's up, Christopher?
Eh,
So yeah, I think for me, I love the majority of things about this build. So they're very comfortable, like you already hinted at. You know, the ear pads are super cushiony, like one of the most
mm,
cushiony ear pads I've ever had that doesn't really cause me any issues with rubbing or anything like that. But there's a double-sided negative to that, which we'll probably talk about here in a minute with the ear pads. So on one side,
yeah.
they're super comfortable and like plush and lovely and definitely very enjoyable, and the I really have no complaints with the build as far as the aesthetics like we talked about. There's a few things as far as comfort with the build that we'll talk about here in a second that do kind of bother me, and then maybe some of the included accessories. But overall, they feel built like tanks, like you said. Focal does generally an exceptional job building their headphones, both stylistically as well as from a durability standpoint. They come with an excellent case that allows you to truly like travel
Hmm.
travel with them, which is cool, as you saw in the unboxing video, if you saw
Which
that.
is the entire reason why I bought these is because of that case and how well they should be able to travel. I didn't want to stick a set of ZMFs in a Pelican case and, I'll be spending a week or two out somewhere, and I didn't want to have to travel with that. So,
Totally. No. And I think
yeah.
that's actually a good point. Let's cover our use cases and why each of us wanted these headphones. So for you, like you had just said, it's going to be for traveling to and from work basically, right? Is that your primary use case? And
Nope.
for oh, what was your use case then?
I'm whenever I'm out of town, these can go in the bag and I can wear them and they're closed back. Hopefully, kill some of the background noise. Um, all of the active noise canceling headphones that I've tried pretty much suck. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I can't stick things in my ears for long periods of time. So, true wireless earbuds, not a thing for me. So, yeah, these are travel cans. And I've been listening to them exclusively since I got them. And they'll probably see some desktop use as
Cool.
well. Yeah.
So mostly travel for enjoyment then, not for work then. So just travel for enjoyment. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting actually back to being able to travel again, which is pretty cool. More so, anyways. So for me, kind of the similar thing. So when I'm able to travel again, this was going to be my travel companion, and two, for streaming specifically because I had been using open backs for streaming this whole time, and what tends to happen is you get a little audio bleed out of an open back from the person on the other end, and then essentially you're getting a little bit of echo, and so I wanted to eliminate that. Christopher, thank you, brother, for the super chat, man. Hard drive space, you know it. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you as always, man. So noise canceling. These aren't really noise canceling headphones, Lucian. Lucian. What they are though is very good at noise isolating. That's for sure. I mean, they do keep noise in, and pretty good job of keeping noise out. I don't know about on an airplane how well they would do. You would still probably hear the engine noise. What do you think, Professor?
I would rate them as how do I put it? The world's best ANC at a 10, and like open back headphones as a 0. This is a solid 7. They
Yeah.
do block out a lot of background noise. I've missed the doorbell twice while wearing these, so it does a pretty good job. That being said, I don't live with anybody else who can sneak up on me and that kind of stuff. So I have no idea about background noise generated by other people, or whether or not I'm annoying other people because of sound leakage or anything like that. But I'd give it a 7.
I would say, yeah, somewhere around there, 7 or 8, somewhere in that realm. I actually tested these out a bit with doing household chores, not like heavy cleaning, but like folding laundry, doing my daughter's laundry, stuff like that. And I just hooked them up with a BTR5, which I doubt that's gonna get too much focus on this guy, but you guys can kind of see, with a BTR5, and went Bluetooth and clipped that to my belt and just kind of did some laundry and stuff like that. And honestly, they do a pretty good job even of knocking down like the noise of like the washing machine starting up and other things. So they're pretty impressive. There's good isolation. So I would say, yeah, 7 to 7 or 8, somewhere in that range. Yeah, no worries, Lucian. I know what you meant by isolation. We're actually going to talk about that, Sleepy. Hold that question. We'll come back to that. We are going to, I think, talk about a little bit how these compare to the Eolis and the Clear MG at least. I don't really have the Clear OG on hand to give you that, but I can give you a little bit of off of audio memory, and we both probably can. So we'll get into that, though. That's a great question, man. Thank you. That is one we will definitely cover. Okay, so let's continue with the build. So if we both love the way they look, they're fairly comfortable for the most part. We're going to discuss some of their areas of opportunity. They're built really well, like most all Focal headphones are. What are our issues with the build quality? So let's talk about that real quick.
Issues with it, the ear pads are super comfortable, but at the same time, when they compress, because they are kind of, they're a lot less firm than what I remember the Utopia being, or even many of their other headphones that I've tried, which makes them great for comfort. But the pads compress, the inside of the pad kind of flexes in on your ear, and it touches so many parts of my ear. And that is a pet peeve of mine. So I do have some other pads on order, and I only ordered them because I decided, yeah, I'll keep these. They sound good. And then what other? Oh, build quality. Do you want to talk about the thing?
Let's talk about the shortest.
Do you want to get it out of the way?
Let's talk about the shortest cable in the room. Let's go ahead and talk about it.
The thing, I cannot get the natural kinks out of the cable. It just won't. I don't know if you can even tell, but I mean, once they get bent and they form that memory of where it's bent, it just won't straighten out, period. It's about 3 feet too short. The only amp that I have been able to use is the ADI-2 sitting right in front of me, literally a foot in front of me. It's the only one that would reach. I'm not moving my entire audio stack just to get these headphones going. I'm just not doing it. Which might make it a good travel cable, but for desktop use, come on, man. I don't know who approved these at Focal, but they need to slap on the wrist. This is just a bad. It
should have been at least 2 feet longer. Let's be real. Like at least 2 feet longer. Like just for instance, right now I'm sitting at my streaming station in my office, and I literally have maybe 6 inches of movement each way before this will pull out of my rig where it's running audio into right now. So, or running audio out of. So, and the bummer about it is that's the only included cable. So you have to know going into this purchase, because there's a lot of great reasons to purchase this headphone, but that's one area of opportunity that you need to probably know that you're going to need a secondary cable, or utilize the cable from a previously owned Focal headphone, or I believe some HiFi-Min cables will work with these as well, because I think they're the mini 3.5 connectors. So as long as you have something that's longer, but unless you're just using this for DAP only, or like BTR5 use, or like with a Dragonfly Red or something like that, you know, where that's your only use case for it, then maybe that cable will be okay. But I would still have liked to have seen this cable to be at least 2 feet longer. So
Absolutely. And yeah, it shouldn't be too hard to get another cable for it. It's little 3.5 mono, so super easy. You can buy these anywhere. Make a cable, or you know, buy one off Amazon for cheap, whatever you want to do.
Yep, exactly. So let's see. Does it make the HE6 SE cable tolerable? I mean, Sheldon,
no.
It's never, the high-fidelity cables will never be tolerable. The only advantage to that cable is it's significantly longer, but other than that, that's it. Those cables, these are far better cables than the high-fidelity cables. It's just a matter of length that they really drop the ball on, and kind of like what you know, the professor said, pliability. They are pretty kinkable. Like, you know, they get pretty kinked up, and I mean, they're twisted up, and you know, the only thing I haven't done with these yet is laid them on the windowsill of, you know, one of my warmer windows, which might loosen them up a little bit for like 10 or 20 minutes in sun. That tends to relax the rubber a little bit, I've noticed, with any cable. It's a little trick for anybody out there. If you're having issues, try that. And sometimes, not for too long of a period of time, but just for like 10 minutes, you know, depending on how hot your window is, and see if that relaxes the rubber. Similar to what you would do with a hose that's really screwed up and it's got a lot of kinks in it. You would lay it on the concrete and let that hose kind of rubber relax and heat up a little bit. It can kind of make it more flexible. So just a little tip or trick, try that, see if that helps. May or may not work for you, but it's one thing I will try with these, but I haven't yet. Go ahead, buddy.
The HE6 cable, though, is terrible. Nothing is worse than that. Licking a live terminal from an outlet is better than wearing those HE6 cables.
Yeah,
that being said, the nice thing about these cables, though, is that they are not microphonic. They don't make noise. The ends look super cool.
Very cool, because they got that copper implemented into it with a they're very nice. So
they don't feel cheap. So I mean, there are good qualities to the cable, but it's so short.
Yeah, and they are a step up. I think they are a step up from Focal's older cables in some ways, because those were very unpliable cables. You know, we discussed this a little bit on my Clear MG stream. Those were really like kind of unpliable, although they felt maybe better than these because they felt a little bit more expensive, but they were really like very kind of tough to bend in certain ways, and they were really strange. So I think they're better in that sense. Kareem had a really good question about heat retention. I would say these do retain heat. They definitely do. I mean, not like significant to where you're like hot, but I mean, as far as a closed back goes, they retain some heat. You know,
they are a little warmer than anything else I've worn, or that I own anyway.
Yeah. And so I have some gripes too with the build that I'll get into now. So some of them the professor already talked about. So for me, I have a medium-sized head and medium-sized ears. So I don't necessarily have, you know, huge ears, but I have the same problem that the professor does. Well, actually more so, it's different. His touch around the pads, whereas mine actually touch the grill, which is the more annoying thing. And I think the reasoning for this is these pads are so cushiony. If you see them on my head, they kind of are just they really come in. So what happens is that grill then touches your ears. I didn't notice it at first. It wasn't too bad. But like after listening to him for an hour, or if you kick back in a chair, then you start to feel that a little bit more. Now, I think the professor is going to see what his pads do, and then maybe like, you know, he'll send me a couple to try out too, maybe for my overall review, and see if that changes, you know, the comfort level. Because I think that's really that and the cables are my two biggest gripes. And I mean, the cable's the biggest gripe, really. I could live even with my ears slightly touching them. It's just something to think about. If you're going to want this for longer term listening, it might be worth looking at upgrading the ear pads to something that doesn't allow them to compress quite as much if you have ears that are touching the grills. So Other than that, I don't really have any other issues with the build. Those are the two biggest things for me, is just the cable wasn't long enough. I can even live with the kinks in the cable. I just wish the length was 2 feet longer. And then I really like the pads from a comfort perspective. The material, the leather that they've used, it's the same as what's on this headband. It's very nice and soft. I just wish that either that grill was pushed back like maybe a half inch, or you know, the pads had a little bit more firmness to them, so that way my ears wouldn't touch. So let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions, and we'll go. Yeah, Kareem, I think it's like a
thank you.
2.9 foot cable. Oh, DP, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Yes, coffee. Coffee is life. Coffee is life. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I think, Kareem, it's probably like a 2.9 foot cable, maybe. I don't know exactly. I'd have to pull the specs, but I think it's like almost 3 feet. So it's decent
Barely.
for DAP use. Yeah, or maybe not even quite 3 feet. Yeah, David. Definitely aftermarket cables, I think, might be the way to go for most people. Yeah, we're going to get into JTB. We're going to get on to the sound impressions actually right now. So that's a good segue in. He said, did you guys find the Radiance little on the bass heavy side? So, I don't know. We'll get into that right now. So let's talk about that. So let me look at my notes and make sure we didn't forget any talking points, but we can we're actually right into that, starting with bass.
There we go.
So, Professor, what are your thoughts on the bass from the Focal Radiance?
Yes, they are on the bassier side, but they have this, what I found kind of a weird property of going from the mids down towards the sub bass. It is neutral, 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 and then holy sub bass, Batman. It just, some songs, when the sub bass kicks in, it rumbles and hits so hard. It's, if you're going to do elevated sub bass, it's actually, I think this is the way I would say people should do it. I mean, is it going to be something that appeals to the Focal Utopia crowd? Maybe not. But at the same time, if you're, a fan of any other, type of bass heavy headphone, or if your inner child is a bass head like mine, yeah, this is awesome. I actually really enjoy the bass on this, because it doesn't intrude. And a lot of people use that description on even V-shaped headphones, where it's like, oh, the mids are a little, recessed, but the bass doesn't totally intrude on it. Well, this doesn't actually. It everything is clean. You can listen to rock and have everything sound, pretty neutral. The mids aren't recessed on this headphone either, or as recessed, I should say, as is it the Elegia or the
Elegia.
Elegia, yeah.
And the Allure. The Allure, both of those had some kind of funky issues in the mids.
That had a lot of, and that's why I didn't care for those at all. This, however, seems to have fixed a lot of that. And this is probably my favorite Focal headphone.
That's big praise.
Yeah. I mean, I had the Utopias for quite a while. Those just want to jam every bit of detail into your brain forcefully, in my opinion. That's kind of how I describe their sound signature, which wasn't really for me. Like, when I listen, it's more of I want to, sink into the music and just kind of float away into, music. And so, the Utopias were just a little too insistent, for me. These have a little bit of that DNA, but they don't take it too far. They're also not very bright compared to probably the entire rest of the Focal lineup, which for me is actually perfect. If you've heard Focal headphones, the Clear, even the Stellia, the Utopia especially, where it's like, wow, that treble is super clean, and it's definitely there, and it's calling attention to itself, and I'm not a huge fan of that. This is more in line with the rest of the frequency range, and I find that to be very enjoyable. So sound signature wise, this is the first Focal headphone where I can't complain. I really can't.
Excellent. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Focal has made, I think, an effort to listen, which is brilliant. Like any manufacturer should listen to what people are saying. And some people were a little bent about some of the audible changes to the Focal Clear MG. I actually preferred the changes because some of the things you just described, like the treble, is actually a little bit more even keel on the Focal Clear to my ears. MG, the newer version, and it seems a little bit more balanced across the spectrum overall. But I like the Clear OG too. I enjoyed that as well. So, but I think with this one, I agree, especially so. Speaking about the bass, and then we're going to take a couple questions from the chat because there was a couple really good ones that I think will be perfect for you, Professor. So I think the bass on these is really nice. I mean, I really dig the bass. Yeah, we're going to talk about those ones and maybe how they compare from a bass perspective in a second. So I like the bass on these. I have an inner bass head in me, 100%. Anybody that knows, I go to Burning Man and I love electronic music, but I don't want that for all my music, right? So, because I love all kinds of different music. I love anything from opera to classical to, hey, what's up, Tyler? What's up, dude? To, orchestral. I like some of the classic audiophile music as well. But then I listen to a lot of classic rock. And, I listen to some metal. I love AC/DC. These actually sound pretty good with some metal, too. So the bass for me is good. It's obviously exactly what Professor said, in my opinion, as well. The sub bass is definitely elevated above neutral, which I kind of enjoy with electronic music and some metal where you want to hear the bass guitar just kind of, you want to boom 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 boom, it's really kind of ripping and you got some more meat on it. I think there's maybe a little bit of mid bass lift, it sounds like to me, just a tiny bit, which is kind of nice also because sometimes vocals have a little warmer presentation from them. They're a little deeper, they're a little bit more romantic sounding, I guess, if you will. They have more life to them, more natural, especially when I was, we'll talk about that in comparisons to like the Clear MG. I think that they do really well with vocals as well, but I think their vocals appear warmer, and I think that's because of, a little bit of the bass lift. So I like the bass presentation, but I also enjoy bass. So I think of all of the Focal headphones, if you like bass and you've been wanting a Focal headphone, these are the ones to highly consider because they are, so far, in what I've heard, they have the most bass presence of any Focal headphone. And I've heard almost all of them, with the exception of the Celesti, which I should have in a week or so, and with the exception of the Stellia. So, but from what my understanding is I think these are actually have even more bass than the Stellia. So anyways, so that's on the bass subject. And so let's flip it back to you, Professor, because there was a couple really great questions. And let me just go back through the chat. Thanks, guys, for all your awesome questions. So first, let's start with Sleepy. Sleepy actually popped one about how does the bass compare, or at least, let's stay with the bass, and then we'll do overall sound comparisons at the end. You've heard the Atticus. I know you've heard every ZMF, haven't you, Professor?
Yeah, heard it, owned it.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you say the bass compares to the Atticus?
So the Atticus is a headphone that I thought was too thick in the mids, too rich, too emphasized in that area. And so while I did own them, I did trade them in for another pair of icons, actually. So I don't think that the Atticus is going to slam as hard as the Radiance will. I think the sub bass on the Radiance just has probably every advantage over the Atticus as far as that goes. But if mid bass extending into mids and that sweet treble that the Atticus had, if that's your groove, there's not much that's going to beat it, especially the Radiance.
Very cool. And then another one, which is good because you have them on hand and you kind of alluded to it when you held up your beautiful Emutiques. How do you think the bass compares between those two?
I like the bass on the Radiance more, and I did directly compare
Wow.
them. So yeah, the Fostex TH series headphones have been known as bass cannons for quite a while, and they've got some issues. The stock pads sound amazing, but they are more of on ear than they are, around ear. So they definitely will touch you up there, and I don't like that. So I replaced the pads. I think I've got suede, um, yeah, Universe Suede ZMF pads on mine right now, and I don't have a camera that you can see that on. But the Radiance exposes every single flaw and weakness in the rest of the frequency response that the Emutique has, right? So the mids seem horribly sucked out on the Emutique compared to the Radiance. The highs seem shrill without having that definition and clarity that the Radiance has. And so while I love these for just pure bass, these have kind of replaced them for that use.
And
Period.
that's once again singing high praise about these headphones because those are pretty well loved by a lot of people.
Hmm.
So, yeah, no problem, Sleepy. Of course, we're gonna try to get every question. If we miss a question, guys, just drop it again. It's just because I'm trying to, you know, look here, do that, conversate with a professor, and so please just throw it back in the chat. I will get to it, and just keep pinging me if I miss it. So let's get into.
Tyler, this is where they touched me. This is it right here.
That's funny, dude. So let's get into dynamics. I had kind of saved that for later down the road, but I think bass dynamics, let's talk about that because you kind of hinted at it. Focal is known for just dynamic punch to all of their headphones. And in my opinion, I don't think that this is any different. This has good dynamics. I think the Clear has actually a tighter dynamic punch sound to it, the Clear MG, but I still enjoy the dynamics from the Radiance. And actually, I'm glad that they don't have quite as much dynamics as the Clear MG because for me, these being a closed back, and I am more sensitive to closed back listening and that pressure, that probably would have been a worse scenario for me and being able to listen to these for longer periods of times. And they still sound extraordinarily dynamic and very good. So what are your thoughts, Professor?
I'd agree. I haven't heard the MG though, so take that with a grain of salt.
Sure.
If they're similar to the OG Clears, then yeah, these don't shout at you, kind of like the Clears can after hours and hours of listening. I don't get me wrong. When it comes to like the Utopia and the Clears and the Stellia and so on, I see why people like these headphones. I really do. But I think the Radiance really kind of takes that DNA and keeps it, but it makes it more accessible to people who, are either more treble sensitive or just don't want such an intense experience, with the sound characteristic.
Yeah, you spot on. I think so too. It's got that dynamic punch that Focal is so famous for, but not overdone to where this is more going to be a universally loved Focal, whereas I think in some cases, like you said, some people might have been turned off by some of the other signatures, So, especially the other thing too is, talking about the synergy conversation, with a lot of people owning because of all of the reviewers talking so much about clean measuring amps and whether it be THX or whatever, these ones are going to play nicer with those types of amps based on my experience because I've listened to quite a few of them with this headphone already because they have that extra bass and mid bass to kind of warm things up and less treble extension than say the Clear. Whereas the Clear MG, I kind of go the opposite direction and put them with something that is a little warmer sounding as an amp to kind of pull back on that to make it more enjoyable for a longer listen. So I think take that for what it's worth, and we can talk about that more in the treble section. But the dynamics are very good. Let's see. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Yes, we will definitely talk about Clear Eolis because I think you compared yours to your Eolis. Did you yet? Professor? Did you do any Eolis comparison?
Not yet.
Okay, I haven't either. So we'll have to hold that for the official review. I didn't do a ton of A/B comparison, Sleepy, yet, because when I first get a headphone in, I pretty much listen to that headphone pretty much nonstop, so I don't trick my my brain constantly going back and forth, because I want to really get, you know, used to that signature. But the full review, which will go in more depth, that I'll drop on my YouTube channel, that will have more of those comparisons 100%. But I did do some with a clear MG, so I can definitely touch on that for you for sure, Sleepy. So dynamics, if we're talking dynamics, the clear MG has a tighter dynamic punch depending on the amp. So the clear MG definitely has, you know, it will scale and change audibly with the amp that you pair it with. Go ahead, Professor.
Oh, I was just going to address John's comments on, you know, whether or not these are shouty. It depends on how you use the term shouty. For me, it's upper mids into treble, right? If those are way above, you know, the rest of the frequency range, yeah, it definitely seems shouty to me. For others, it's more of a, you know, is the mid range emphasized? And it also depends on what your bass line is. You know, if you're coming from the Aeolus or the Auteur, you know, headphones like that, where there is definite, you know, this smooth emphasis in the mids, and, you know, that's what you're coming from. No, these aren't shouty. No, these definitely don't seem warm in the mids in that regard, right? Because that's how they're voiced. Compared to, like, you know, ZMFs and things like that. But they definitely do have more treble energy than, you know, those kind of headphones. So it does seem, it may just be a matter of perspective or terminology or what your baseline is, you know, as far as that goes.
Yeah, and John, I'm going to touch on what I think you heard as well, too, because I did hear a little bit of what you're describing. I don't know if I would call it shouty. I think that's a bit, in my opinion, a bit maybe more so than what I would say, but I would say definitely vocals are definitely more energized on certain amps specifically. Like, so brighter sounding amps with the Radiance, like really brighter, and I'm talking like, you know, I shouldn't say brighter, I'd say just really detailed, more forward sounding amps. They do kind of present the vocals a little bit more energetic, because you got that more of a wall of sound presentation. And then warmer sounding amps, not too warm, because I think the Radiance, if you give too much warmth to it, it's kind of, you're laying more warmth on more warmth. But, you know, those vocals didn't step as forward in the mix as much to me when comparing to the clear. So I know what you're saying. I can relate to what you're saying, and it really depends on the chain you were hearing too. But, you know, hey, that's your audible impression, and we respect that. So everybody has different audible impressions. So, you know, we all hear a little bit differently, and we're never gonna, you know, say your opinion isn't valued here. That's the difference on this channel. You know, we're never gonna devalue your opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I respect it. So, but it, you know, for me, I wouldn't say necessarily they were shouty, but I could maybe hear a little bit of what you're talking about on certain amps. So, and also on certain recordings. I should qualify that, on certain recordings. So,
well, I do remember when I first put these on. FedEx delivered them, and I pulled them out of the box, and I let them sit for a half hour to get back to room temperature, because it was a cold day out there. And I had been listening to the Aeolus for a while, speaking of the comparison that has been asked about. And the first thing that I thought of when I put them on is, whoa, hey, that's, you know, more treble, more energy, and more detail being pushed at me. You let metal burn in, you know, take effect. And, you know, at this point, it's perfect. It's fine. I don't mind it.
yeah, and I think too, what would be, I would say more so what I would probably relate to with the sound of these versus the clear MG is the clear MG are more balanced across the frequency response chart. So if you are somebody that's listening for that balance between bass, mids, and treble, I definitely think the clear MG are going to be the more balanced sound signature, and you might be more sensitive, like John, to hearing certain areas of that, presentation where things sound more shouty to you. I didn't feel that these were really shouty. However, they're not as balanced as the clear MG. The clear MG is the most balanced Focal headphone I've heard yet. And I discussed that on my last live stream, and it's probably my favorite Focal headphone right now from the open back world. And I only have experience with two closed backs, the Alesia and this one. And Tyler, if he's gonna ever send me his Stellia, Tyler.
Oh yeah.
If he ever sends me his Stellia, then I'll know how those two compare, and then I'll know which is my favorite. But the Alesia was not my favorite. I would take this over the Alesia any day of the week. All right, so let's get into. Let's talk about mids. So we kind of went off on a tangent there, but great questions, everybody. So mids, what did you hear in the mids? I heard a little bit of warmth, in the mids. Vocals sounded a little warmer to me. Instruments like strings, cello, even violin sounded a little warmer, especially if you're A-Bing to, like, say, a clear MG. What do you think in the mid range? What were your overalls in the mids?
I don't think that they commit any sins in the mids, specifically. It's not wildly uneven like I've heard some headphones. It's not completely sucked out like on the Emutique by comparison. Because when all I was doing is listening to the Emutiques, I was like, hey, this is pretty good in the mids. No, not compared to these. I don't have many complaints in the mids. Vocals seem really clear. I can easily distinguish them from, all of the guitars and piano and all the other stuff that's going on in the track. I don't have any complaints there. So,
yeah, I enjoyed the mids. I think the mid range on these present vocals warmer, like I had mentioned, and I like that. I like a little warmth in the vocals. The staging, which we'll get to in a minute here, is a little different on vocals compared to, like, say, the clear MG or other headphones. But I really, listening to the cello off of these, and they have a little bit more, or like what I kind of alluded to earlier, bass guitar. You know what I mean? Just hearing some different warmth to string instruments, vocals. I'm not going to complain about that. I really love the vocals in the mid-range on the clear MG as well, but they're different. They're definitely different. For a closed-back headphone, I like the mid-range on this. They're not sucked out, which is the most important thing to me. Having a sucked-out mid-range really destroys a lot of music, in my opinion. It can be fun for some music, having a more V-shaped signature, but too much is just too much. So.
For a lot of electronic music, I don't think you're going to notice a sucked out mid-range as much.
Right? Exactly, which is fine, But once you get to vocals and other things, a lot of string instruments and more orchestral, or that's a problem.
Or even things where you're listening to like Fleetwood Mac and
yes.
Lindsay's voice doesn't come through the same way as Stevie's voice. Uneven mid-range there, that kind of just ruins the track for me. Or if you're listening to like something really complex with a lot going on with a lot of distortion at the same time, something like Nightwish, right? Greatest Show on Earth. That's a busy song. It's also a 20-minute song, but if everything is still distinct while you're listening to it and it doesn't glaringly, like, obviously over-present a certain part of it, it's doing its job, and these do a good job on that. I like it.
Yep. And there's some good questions about tube amps and how these pair. Hang tight on those. We have a section at the very kind of closer to the end of the stream where we're going to talk about synergy and amp pairings and tubes with these. So definitely Suabib, and I think one other person asked that as well about how it compares. Oh, no, it was you both times on the pendant and other tube amps, I will definitely get to that because I have listened to it on several tube amps. So, of course, I've got you. So let's get into the treble. So treble on these. What's your take on treble? I mean, we kind of hinted at it earlier, right? But let's get into it officially. Let's talk treble on the Radiance.
This is where the DNA, the focal DNA, it's still there, right? The clarity is still there. It seems very detailed, but and it kind of pushes a little bit of a boundary there for me, but it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't go over across any lines, like I thought the Utopia definitely did. Um, you know, things like that, and it's how do I put it? Uh, Tastefully lifted and well done. It extends very well. It seems very linear. Um, so the only thing that I guess, if I had to really make a complaint about it, is that it does seem not congested. What do you call it? Claustrophobic, as far as staging goes. But um, beyond that, I I like the treble, which I
Yeah,
never thought I'd say about a Focal headphone, but I like the treble.
yeah, and I will definitely talk about the staging in a second too, because that's one area that I think there's some things good about it and some things that could be improved, but it's hard with a closed back as well, unless you're talking like some of the higher end closed backs that stage better, like maybe the ZMF Verte closed. So let's see. My impressions on the treble are similar. I feel like this has actually got less treble presentation than the Clear MG, which is the most recent one that I've been kind of reviewing, which is good and bad for me in some cases. When you listen to the Clear MG and you're really getting used to that signature and you're getting a bit more air at the top, which makes it sound a bit more open sounding, kind of similar to what you were saying about the claustrophobic feel. You tend to miss that a little bit, but that goes away pretty quickly after you listen for a few minutes. It's really only with the AB where you're like, okay, I'm not getting enough treble in my presentation of the headphones. What I do love about these is there's no treble fatigue with these, at least to my ears. So
Right.
that's super important because nothing is worse. Pretty much nothing is worse to me as a listener if I'm getting treble fatigue from a headphone, because then I can't listen to it for very long, which defeats the whole purpose of me owning the headphone in the first place. Because you want to be able to listen to the headphone for as much time as you want to listen to without saying, oh, I can't hear this anymore because I'm taking knives to the ears. So, so I think the treble's good. There is times I wish it had a little bit more. So let me say for treble heads, this is not probably going to be your headphone, right? So let's qualify that. This is not, you're going to be better off with like a Clear MG or a Utopia, or probably the Stellia is going to have more treble presentation based on what I've seen, I believe, in some of the graphs. So that's something to keep in mind. But for those of you that are sensitive to treble and don't want that treble, this is probably right up your alley. Like, you have enough treble to really enjoy the music without it ever, going overboard. At least to my ears. And I think I like a touch more treble than you do, Professor. So with that being said, if it's good for me and good for you, and you're pretty treble sensitive, and I'm not as treble sensitive, but I'm still treble sensitive, then this is actually a pretty universally good sounding headphone for most people in the treble region, unless you're a treble head and you want significant treble presentation. Then this could be a little bit tougher for you as a sale or buying this headphone. So let's get into Soundstage, because that's next on our list, and imaging. So, oh wait, somebody hooked us up. Jay, donating to the cause. Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
Two super chats.
Hard drive space. Oh, and another one. Swabib, thank you, brother. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Stretching is our foot, raising stuff. Yes. Thank you, man. You rock, dude. I appreciate you. So, okay, man, that always throws me off, and I love it to be thrown off because it feels so great for you guys to support the channel and the efforts, and but I always lose my train of thought. But but
Sidetracked.
it's worth losing my train of thought. Thank you for your support, guys. Seriously, can't do it without you guys. I mean, I'm a single dad. I work, half the week, and then the other half of the week I'm with my daughter. And so every time you guys support to this channel, it allows me to keep doing what I'm doing and purchase more hard drive space. All right, so what were we on? Soundstage. Yeah, Soundstage.
Soundstage. Yeah.
All right. So what are your thoughts on the Soundstage?
Soundstage is in your head. It's narrow. So it follows with my experience with the rest of the Focal line. It doesn't really give you too much of that 3D, holographic presentation. So it's a bit more intimate in that regard, but it does image quite well. There's no 3 blob thing going on where it's like, like I either only hear it in the middle or I hear it to the left and right. There are, fine gradients in between where you can pick out instruments and various things like that. It does it, I would say, in a pretty smooth manner, So I can't argue about imaging, but staging is it's beaten by the Aeolus. It's beaten by the Verite for sure. The Verite closed. Did I say Auteur already?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
If not, you did now.
Okay, there you go. And the Empyrean, this is hit or miss for a lot of people, so I know it's kind of a controversial thing, but I think the Empyrean has some of the best imaging in any headphone, period. And so it's definitely far from that as well. But so I don't know. I am not a head stage critic or fanatic, though, right? I mean, I can hear it. It's not high up on the list of importance for me, because if I want actual staging, I switch to speakers.
Yeah.
And that's where you can actually get an image. So
yeah, I think, staging to me is up there on my list with headphones, but not always. Tonality is probably one of my bigger things for me. Is how does it sound tonally, or the timbre?
Yeah, myself as well.
Or the timbre of the headphones probably is higher than Soundstage. But I would say that I agree with the majority of what you just said. The Soundstage is pretty intimate on these. I think they have a little more width than what I remember the Alesia having, which I appreciate. And I mean, for a closed back headphone, they're not horrible, but they are still intimate. And the vocals are definitely brought way more intimate into you. And that could also partially be why when you're listening to certain songs, and some listeners are saying, like John was saying, the vocals he's not enjoying as much, because they are being pulled really close to you in the mix and on the stage at least when I listen, whereas the clear puts them out a little bit further on that stage, and so they sound more balanced in the mix, and they sound, at least with the clear MG, like everything is kind of more balanced in the Soundstage. And also, of course, we're comparing a closed back to an open back headphone, so it's not really a fair comparison, because in my experience, an open back headphone always sounds better from a staging perspective than the majority of closed backs. There's obviously some, I think, like the Verite open, or the Verite closed, excuse me, is probably one of those ones that everybody that I've read loves the 3-dimensionality of that stage, and it's a closed back, and it sounds pretty open in 3D from what most people say, and I know you own those, and I know Tyler loves those. So the staging isn't horrible. The staging isn't great, but from what I've read, the staging is better on these than the Celeste, because people are saying the Celeste's biggest weakness is the staging. But I won't really know until I get those, and those should be about a week or so I can give you more comparisons. And definitely when I do my first impressions of the Celeste, I will be comparing first impression-wise heavily to the Radiance to give you some of the key differences. So staging isn't bad. No three blob thing. It's decent. It's decent for a closed back headphone, but it's not going to be your top priority with these, I think, and it's not going to be the best staging, but still acceptable and enjoyable in my opinion. Let's see if we missed any questions.
Matt had a super chat, and he asked the question: is the Radiance kind of like an open back Elysia? It's a closed back, actually, so they're both closed backs. And I would say I did not like the Elysia all that much, personally. So um, I would say it's better than the Elysia, especially in the mid range.
And Jay also had a question wondering which one to get, closed, Celestia, Radiance, or Stellia. So, I mean, if Tyler sends me a Stellia to review, I would be able to tell you. The Radiance will be here, or I mean, the Celestia will be here, I think, in a week or so. Taryn and the wonderful gang over at headphones.com, I think, is going to get those over to me. They're with Chrono right now, and then I'll be able to compare. But the Stellia, to me, based on Tyler's impressions and a few other people that I talk to that I trust in the audio world, probably would be the more enjoyable headphone for me overall. But we're talking $3,000 versus $1,290, so we're more than double the price. So Jay, if you've got the 3K, or you can always reach out and see if there's an open box or any deals. Headphones.com, Taryn and Andrew will take great care of you. Then I would recommend checking and see what they got. But I'm pretty sure the majority of people that have the Stellia, their only main complaint about it is intimacy with the stage, as well as maybe the leather kind of discoloring over time. But other than that, from what I've read and from the people I know that own it and I trust in this audio world, they pretty much love that headphone. So hopefully I answered that question for you, Jay. Let's see. Let's just make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Okay, so yeah. DP. All right, buddy. Thanks, DP. Appreciate you, man. Let's see. All right. I think
Scott Pledger has a really good point. That some headphones, when they're in intimate soundstage and whatnot, can still give you a very pleasing experience, right? So he really likes how they make Ella Fitzgerald sound like she's singing right in front of him. And yeah, I mean, there is some music where that's what you want, and so it's use case and preference, and I don't see an issue with it. I think they're fine.
No, that's a great point. Sometimes you want those vocals right next to you. I mean, like Lana Del Rey, she can get as close to me as she wants when she's singing. I'll take that all day, every day. And you know who else? Dua Lipa, too. I'm good with them being like right here. You can just sing, just whisper every sweet nothing right into my ears. Both of them. Thank you. Thanks, ladies. All day, every day. Matt Hilty, thank you, brother. I think the professor just got your question. And thank you again for the super chat and your support, brother. Seriously, we appreciate that. All right. Hey, what's up, Martin? Welcome, buddy. Good to see you, man. How's everything in the world of Germany and Europe? Good to see you, brother. All right. I think we're almost caught up.
Sweet.
Yeah, let me just make sure. Okay, cool. John has a question about I would take these. Okay, I haven't heard the Noir yet, but I have heard the Eon 2, and I would take these over the Eon 2, personally. I think these universally are better for more genres of music than the Eon 2s were, but I heard the Noir fixes a lot of that, so it would be an interesting comparison, actually. That would be a very interesting comparison, and it's a great question. What's up, Mark? Welcome, buddy. Glad you joined. Good to see you, man. Let's see. All right. Cool. Yeah, Sheldon's telling me to take it easy because he knows how much I love the vocals of those two female singers. I know, brother. I know. It's hard. It's hard for me, though. All right. So, Soundstage, I think we covered it pretty well. Soundstage is decent. It's not spectacular, but it's also not the smallest, I think, either, that I've heard. So, from Focal, but I do prefer the clear MG Sage to it. But once again, open sounding versus closed. All right, let's talk about, we already covered dynamics, so let's get into detail retrieval. I'll start on this one. Detail retrieval is not as good as the clear MG, so I'm going to keep using that as a comparison point because those are both Focal headphones and the two newest ones I've had in to listen and compare. But it's not far behind. It's not tremendously far behind. you're still picking up quite a bit of detail in the recordings, whether that's plucks of strings, fingers on strings, movements of chairs and backgrounds in orchestral pieces, coughs in the background on some Nils Fromm recordings that were live, and my God, whatever's going on, they maybe need to calm down the amount of coughing they got in the background on some of those, but you still are picking up those details and micro details really well. No, just not as much as the clear MG, but you would expect that, I think, from, a step up in their line, right? The clear MG is at a higher level, so you would expect probably more detail retrieval from a headphone like that. What do you think about detail retrieval on these, Professor?
I think they're really good. So for detail retrieval, for me, the topic of it is, I think it's easy to pick up detail in a lot of headphones, because, a cymbal is a cymbal and you can hear it. How is the decay on the cymbal, though? How is, can you hear the actual enunciation of a word in like a metal song or a rock song, or like an operatic, singer where, going down a scale or up a scale or whatnot, that enunciation can get a little blurred, can you hear that? Does it come through?
The
Yes,
subtleties.
these do fantastic with that. Yeah, they do really, really good as far as being able to hear, those kind of things. So that doesn't muddle any of that up. As far as being able to hear, a lot of the detail in a background sound, my standard track for that is Rebecca Pigeon's Spanish Harlem off the Raven album. And yeah, you can hear the drummer pick up the sticks. You can hear the clack of the upright bassist, slightly adjusting his instrument when it hits the floor again. Basically, since it was recorded as a band, everybody there in the same room, you could hear the acoustics of that in the room. And yeah, it comes through fine. I would say that it's presented a little bit more pronounced, those details, than a lot of the other headphones.
Shove it forward at you a little bit.
This is, and for me, like I said, that's part of how Focal does things. It's their house sound, right?
Yeah, house sound, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. It is their house sound,
and it's there. They've got that. It's still there. I don't think it's as I don't think it's Utopia level.
No,
but
no.
What is, right? So
no. I mean, they're. I mean, HE6, or not HE6. Excuse me, HE1000 SE. Like that's up there with the Detail Kings and some other ones, but no, it's not at the same level, and not in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. So I would definitely say that they're very good for that. If you're, I don't know, coming from the ZMF world, it is more pronounced. Not that you're missing it on the ZMF, but it's just more pronounced. So yeah, it's good. I like it.
Scott, thank you, brother, for the super chat. Thank you, man. Hey, housework and us. I'm glad that helped improve drinks. Appreciate you. More to my coffee fund. And Suabib, thank you, man. Thank you so much, man. Yes, we can connect on Discord, 100%. Just reach out to me. Hit me up at mrhifiReviews.com and we'll get that set up for you. Sheldon, super chat from Sheldon too. Yes, we need the Focal replacement cable fund. Absolutely. That's hilarious. Thank you guys. Appreciate your support. So detail retrieval is good. It's got traditional Focal detail retrieval, not at the same level of the Utopia, not at the same level of the Clear MG, but pretty close. It's getting close to that. And I think the really only, maybe the differences in the drivers, right? This is the aluminum magnesium driver. The new Clear MG is fully magnesium driver. And then the Utopia, you have the beryllium driver. So as well as with the Stellia, you have the beryllium driver. So I found most of the time beryllium mixed with a driver, whereas it's the Verte Open or with a Utopia, and I'm sure also with a Stellia, you just get the massive amounts of detail. Like it's crazy what you hear, and the imaging is always like a level up. So Johnson, that's a funny question. Who would you rather drink with, the devil or your enemy? I don't know the answer to that one, brother. I'd have to think on that one because that's a very serious question. I don't really like to have
Okay.
any enemies, so I
That's
try
a
to keep.
loaded question, I think.
Yeah, I try to
Yeah.
keep everybody, as a friend. That's my goal in life. All right, so let's get into speed. The speed of these drivers and the speed of these headphones. What did you think about these? How do you feel the speed was?
Pretty good. I think the Verite Close is kind of a faster sound. It's got,
Beryllium, baby.
yeah, that might have something to do with it. I I think that these do kind of suffer a little bit in the speed category. Just to be perfectly honest, I think all of the other Focal headphones kind of seem a little quicker. The transients come across faster. Um, things like that. So, and maybe that's part of why I like these as much because you know speed in my mind also has um, shares characteristics with a treble that kind of can grate on me at times and things like that. So, but yeah, I don't think that they're like I said. If you're a Utopia fan, you're probably not going to like the Radiance. They don't have the detail, they don't have the speed, they don't have everything you love about the Utopia. If you like any other headphone, you're probably going to love the Radiance, kind of situation. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they're actually. My take on it is I think that they're actually pretty fast sounding, especially if like you listen to electronic music with these and you're really listening for those transients.
Mhm.
However, what I think I hear, and it's actually agreeing with what you're saying. What I think I hear the difference of these versus like the clear is the elevated sub bass and maybe a little bit of the mid bass kind of takes away from the overall sound signature of the speed. So it might not be necessarily that the driver, well, it's probably a little less fast, right? Because magnesium is actually a lighter weight material, which should technically, from a scientific standpoint, should be able to move faster. But they're still fast enough. I think they're plenty fast for electronic music, which I think speed is really important, or maybe some jazz. Um, I think they're plenty quick, but they're not the fastest. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're not the fastest in the lineup. The Clear MG are faster, and the Utopia are definitely faster. But I think they sound very good. So the speed is for a close back. I'm happy with it. So let's see here. Yeah, they're not distracting. Not distracting from a speed perspective, John. But yeah, definitely slower than
And
the rest of the lineup.
that's an interesting term, bad speed, because there is bad speed. There is it
Too fast. Yeah.
overwhelming. It just it. I don't think speed is the thing. You want it to be there. You want it to be doing its job, but you don't want it to be center stage and the star of the show, because you're losing too much in other categories. I think. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just me. I don't.
No, I think that's absolutely. I think especially with the type, depending on the type of music you listen to. I mean, maybe there's some music like there's some classical where you may really want that speed because that's what you enjoy, and that's when the Utopia is probably your jam. If you don't mind a smaller soundstage, because the Utopia doesn't have it has the most accurate imaging soundstage, but it's very small in presentation compared to some other headphones. Okay, tonality, and then we can start getting into some more of our comparisons and maybe some amps that we listen to this with and talk about some synergies. But let's talk about tonality. So for me, I'll start on this one. Tonality, I feel like this has one of the better tonalities of the majority of all Focal headphones I've heard. I think you could still hear in some cases a little bit of that Focal tonality, or what some people would say like a metallic sound, but it's not nearly as bad as some of their other headphones in the past. I think the extra warmth in the bass and in a little bit of that mid bass, just a touch over maybe neutral in the mid bass, actually really helps the tonality of these headphones to have them sound more enjoyable. Like, You know, they're not ZMF tonality, and I have yet to find anything that's come close, with the exception maybe of the Rad Zero. The Rad Zero got pretty close to ZMF tonality from a planar magnetic headphone, but still, I have yet to find a headphone that had better tonality than like the Eolis or the Verite. So I don't think anybody's going to have that yet until they figure out how Zach works his magic. But of the Focal lineup, I think these have pretty darn good tonality. A little bit warmer, a little bit easier going, and strings sound nice on them. So, what do you think?
I would say that if you're a ZMF fan, the Radiance would be your gateway drug into Focal.
Yeah.
It's the closest to the ZMF house sound. It's got a good amount of bass. It doesn't seem, bloated or anything like that. The mids are still there. You can still get that, which is why I love my ZMFs, because to me, music lives in the mids. The the tonality, I think, is absolutely, like, really, really good for a large number of people, except for the bass. I personally think that these have a little bit too much of a shelf, or a raise, I should say, in the sub bass, because it'll surprise you. All of a sudden, you're listening to something, blah blah blah, and then bam, it hits you, and you're like, "Holy crap, what was that?" But at the same time, that's enjoyable. It's fun. So I can see people loving it or hating it, as far as that goes. But that's just talking about sub bass, right? The rest of the frequency range is great.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm even more treble sensitive than you are, and these are fine. I don't have a problem with these. I can't listen to an HD800 for too long. Those
get you.
Get uncomfortable. Yeah, they'll sting me a little bit. Not as bad as most of the DT series Bear Dynamics that I've heard, where it's just straight up, okay, that 6K peak is going to give me a migraine, that kind of thing. These are great. Like I said, the tonality is good.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think when you first like pop over from the Clear MG as an example to the Radiance, that initial sub bass warmth, you're like, whoa! You're like, whoa, because the Clear sounds more even keel across the frequency response for the most part, and then you listen to the Radiance and you're like, okay, these are bassy boys. I just got to prepare myself. Let me go ahead and put on some of The Weeknd, or let me go put on Infected Mushroom, or let me throw on something else, the Bass Nectar, or something that's really geared to or towards a more bassy boy presentation, and they really just come alive and they fit that tonality of that genre of music better. But if you're listening for neutrality, these are not neutrality. This is not neutrality. But if you're a bass lover, you're going to like the tonality more than likely on these versus any of the other Focal headphones. I think we got a question here from Johnson, which is a good one. For someone who likes wide soundstage, which of the Focal headphones would you recommend? None of them. I mean,
none of them.
That's you were thinking it, weren't you? And I just had to say it. Okay, listen, that's kind of a joke, but it's not a joke, because here's the thing. Focal is not known for wide soundstage, but I will say the Clear MG, as of right now, has the widest sounding stage in their lineup. The Utopia has the most accurate sounding stage I've probably heard on almost any headphone. I would give them credit. It's very small and intimate, but man, you know where everything is imaging wise. It's like exceptionally well defined. But if you're looking for actual width, which I believe is what you said, who likes wide soundstage, the Focal lineup isn't going to be known for width.
Or even depth.
Yeah. So I think the Clear MG, as of right now, going off of audio memory, take that with a grain of salt, is probably my favorite staging Focal headphone as of right now. So, I mean, I'd have to have a Utopia to AB, but as of right now, that's my favorite.
Just a quick answer for Martin. Martin, I haven't heard the headphone yet, and that's the HEDD phone. I haven't heard that yet, so I can't answer your question, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the Clear MG does really well with its imaging, Jay. Yeah, I agree. And yes, Christopher, we're going to talk about that in a second. The MG is pretty holographic, especially with tubes. So we're going to talk about comparisons, and I got a new amp in too. I haven't got a ton of time with it yet, but I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, Clear MG, Jay agrees. Clear MG's probably got the best soundstage. So we got a few people that would say the Clear MG probably would be your best bet, Johnson. So just to add that back up, maybe the Clear MG is something to look at. There's actually links to the Clear MG in this video live stream right now in the description of the video, and headphones.com. Exceptional service. Taryn and the team will take great care of you if you're interested in that headphone. All right, so let's get into some comparisons. So I really only compared it to one headphone. I think you maybe did it to a couple. So why don't you start off with, yeah. Oh, well, you did a few. So why don't you start off with, well, maybe not all six. What six did you compare it to?
The Empyrean, the Verite Closed, the Auteur, the Aeolus, and the HD650, and the Emutique.
So let's do three.
So wait, that's 7. So
let's do 3. I think the 3 would be the most pertinent, possibly. Let's do the HD6XX because that's a reference headphone. So maybe that's one of them. You kind of already talked about the Emutique, so we don't need to do that again. The Eolis Sleepy definitely wanted to. So let's do that one for sure. Let's start with those two and then maybe grab one more, and I'll just give my one impression I compared to. So you started off.
Okay. Should I make him wait for the Eolis?
Yeah, the Eolis is a good one. Do that one last.
Yeah.
Eolis
okay, I'll do that one last. Make him wait. The best for last. So against the Empyrean, they don't stage as wide, obviously. I find them to be how do I put it? Almost as fast as that planar speed that you can get with the Empyrean, which I think is
impressive.
One of the hallmarks, one of the good things about the headphone. The mids and clarity in the mids, though, I actually think just by a hair, the Radiance takes it just a little bit. Bass, they're both bassy headphones, tonality-wise, so they're comparable there. I think if I were to wear a headphone for a long period of time, the Empyrean would win. But there are people who just absolutely can't stand the Empyrean. That's cool. I get it. So yeah, the similarity ends basically in the upper mids into the treble. And then that's where the Empyrean definitely gets a darker, less bright, less forceful, doesn't take the dynamics and, really present it front and center, where the Radiance does. So it might actually address a lot of the issues, sans head stage, that, people, critics of the Empyrean might have. So,
yeah, good point.
Some food for thought on that one.
Yeah.
Second one you want me to compare? HD650, you said?
Yeah, 650 or 6XX, yeah. Because that's a reference point. Everybody's heard it at one point, probably, or owned it at one point for the most part. So,
yeah. Still one of my favorite headphones, even though I don't really use it as much as it probably deserves.
Same. I'm the same. It's hard when you got all these headphones that are just at a tier higher, so.
Right. And that's what I would say. I would say Radiance is a tier higher. It definitely doesn't have a rolled off bass like the 650 does.
That's for sure. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it kind of depends. If you're if you like the mids of the HD650, I think you'll actually like the mids of the Radiance. They do come across once again with a little bit more emphasis for detail, things like that. But what you're getting with the Radiance over the HD650 is no roll off at either ends. In fact, quite a bit of emphasis in the bass and treble compared to the HD650s. So yeah, I think it's just all around a better headphone. Tonality, uh, there are people who, and it depends on what chain you have too, because I mean, once you hook up an HD650 to a superb chain, you know, a lot of the things that people criticize it for really kind of get addressed.
Yeah, like a
Um,
bottle head crack, and it's just like
yeah.
tubes. Feed that thing
Or,
tubes, and
yeah,
it really starts to play.
DNA Stratus, a T4, those headphones did such an amazing job with the HD650. So it depends. I mean, if you don't really want that extra emphasis in treble and whatnot, HD650 is a great headphone. Honestly, though, I think the Radiance just smokes it in just about every other category. Um, so you said three
Now for
headphones,
the
which now
Eolis.
for the Eolis, which I love, 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 love my zero coat Eolis. Which one of these days I'm actually going to buy lights so the camera can
Beautiful. It's
show
beautiful.
you what the hell. But maybe I'll just take a picture and can throw that up next time. So the biggest thing comparison wise is the Aeolus is smooth. It's it's got that liquid mid range.
Yep.
Um,
One of the best.
and it's I think that liquidity and that smoothness that the Radiance goes in the other direction on, right?
Yep.
It's still there. It still presents a great sound, but the Aeolus, in my mind, you're not losing detail. You're not losing, um, a ton of dynamics and things like that. But it's a smoother sound. The bass is more in line with the rest of the music. It doesn't jump out.
More mid focus too, right?
Oh, it definitely is a more mid-focus sound. Yes, definitely is.
Yeah.
And the treble isn't going to be as excitable as the Radiance.
Yeah.
So it's I would definitely say that I prefer the Aeolus between the two. I can wear it for longer. The music I listen to, whether it be rock or EDM or jazz or blues, especially blues, with the way the singers and the guitars come together. The Aeolus, I think, just nails it a bit more than the Radiance does. If I'm listening to EDM, I'm probably switching to a different headphone that has more bass, which these Radiance,
So
do fantastic on.
would you take the Radiance for EDM over the Eolis?
I would.
Yeah, same with me. Same with me. I mean, I love my
Yeah.
Eolis. One of my favorite headphones. It's like I always say, it's going to be my daughter's headphone. I'm going to give that to her when she's old enough. I'm never going to sell it.
Yeah.
But for EDM, I would definitely go to these over the Eolis just because of the sub bass. The sub bass, and actually that treble. Sometimes that sparkle is really nice for some electronic music. So, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to
No.
ask
I'm
that.
I'm pretty much done. I have a tendency to ramble too, so you got to interject.
You do great,
So,
man. I thought that was really very succinct. I don't think you rambled at all. So I think I haven't done side by side comparison, but based on your impressions and your A being, they sound, just based on what I've been listening to, and I own both of those headphones, and I've listened to the Empyrean, which I loved, by the way. That review is going to be reviewed and it's filmed. Excuse me. It's going to be edited and able for view in the near future. So
can't wait for that one.
that one will be a good one. Whether or not it's divisive, whatever. I don't really care. I just tell people what I feel about something, what I like. And I think the bigger problem people have so much maybe with the Empyrean is more so about its price, less about maybe its sound. So people are more thinking about, oh well, they're reviewing it from a sense of what is affordable to them and what value is to them. But that's so subjective, just like everything else. So I don't tend to put that into my reviews. I don't think about dollar amounts. I may say what's valuable and what's, a good deal or something like that. But at the end of the day, that's all subjective, because we might be talking to a software engineer right now that's making $250,000 a year, and a $3,000 Empyrean with his or her quarterly bonus that was $25,000 is nothing. So I think we always have to keep that in mind. Price is subjective, and it's important for us to focus on the product for what it offers as far as performance, aesthetics, and sound quality versus maybe price, while still mentioning the price, and because that's important. But I don't think it should. I don't think it needs to change our impressions of a product. At least in my opinion.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So for me, I just primarily compared to the Clear MG, and the Clear MG is like I was saying, it's a more open sound. It has extremely great imaging, and it sounds a bit more holographic sounding, especially when listening with some tube amplification. The Radiance has a stronger sub bass lift, a little bit more in the mid bass region, a little bit in the, just a touch more. And then I feel like the stage is definitely a lot smaller, and vocals are a lot more in your face forward on the Radiance versus the Clear. If I was going to choose between the two, I would say I would take the Clear MG, just because it is a really good reference headphone while still sounding exceptionally well, and it's easier to alter that sound signature, which is what I'm going to talk about in a second, with some tubes. Whereas this one, you already have that lift in sub bass, and it's harder to take that away if you don't want that for some music, right? Unless you EQ, but I'm not an EQ guy. So, but they fit two different bills, in my opinion, because these are closed back, and they're also less expensive slightly than the Clear, and they're also easier to drive. They're 35 ohms versus 55 ohms. You technically could run these out of your phone if you really had to, or your laptop in an emergency. Most of us audiophiles are going to at least bring along a Dragonfly or a BTR3 or a BTR5, but in a pinch, they're 35 ohms, and they're really easy to drive. So from a sound comparison though, I think if you're looking for more neutrality, a more open sound, better imaging, slightly more detail, then the Clear MG would be the route to go. But if you're looking for a warmer headphone with a warmer tonality, a nice sub bass lift, and you appreciate a warmer overall signature, and you're not as concerned about the smaller stage, and the looks of these are quite sexy. I mean, I'll give it to them. Although the Clear MG are sexy too, but these are a little bit more laid back and low pro with all black and copper, but either one is a great headphone. I honestly enjoy them both, and I'm glad that I have both. So take that for what it's worth. Let's see. Hey Jay, the Empyrean against the Verite Open will be part of my Empyrean review. Stay tuned. I did a heavy comparison of those two, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, John, absolutely. It always comes down to perceived value, 100%. Okay, so now let's get into, let me bring up amp cam. I don't know, I'm just being silly right now. So let's get rid of us. So I have listened.
There's that echo.
There's that echo. Echo 2, baby. So I've been doing a lot of listening with the Echo 2 since I got it. And I've listened to the Radiance off of everything you see here with the exception of the bottlehead crack. I didn't go that route with the Radiance. And then I have a whole nother rack over here that you can't see that is stacked with an Asgard 3, a Cavalli, a CTH from Drop, a matrix-element-m, and yeah, over there. So, and then I have a Matrix i3 Mini Pro as my bedroom rig, and I have listened to it on everything. In fact, the only thing I haven't listened to the Clear Radiance on yet is the bottlehead crack. So everything else I've put some head time in with it. So I will let you, since I think you only had maybe one amp you listened to, I think you said, Professor, because of the short cable. So let me add you in here. Let me see here. I'm going to add us in this way. So why don't you talk to us? Let me figure out how to do this real quick. Talk to us about your impressions with the what was the amp again? The RME, right? Was the RME?
The ADI2 DAC
Yeah.
FS, yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Okay, so I have EQ turned off. I'm using the quarter-inch plug on the front, straight into the headphone. So there's no altering of the sound. I don't have any of the bass or treble lifts on. So it's just the clean, basic sound. If you want a quick review of the ADI DAC, or the ADI2 DAC, it's a solid DAC. It drives my studio monitors, and I think it does fantastic in that regard. I think the amp section on it is, how do I put it? I think they played it a little safe there. So it's going to be nothing extraordinary, but it's very serviceable for just about anything you plug into it. So considering it's the only amp I have that my headphones can reach, or the Radiance can reach, yeah, I figured it's pretty safe forming opinions about the Radiance off of that. Now, I am looking forward to getting the parts in to finish building the cable for this thing, so that I can get it to reach over to my Stratus and my Black Widow too, and Asgard and Jotunheim and all of the other fun little guys I got sitting,
it's gonna change the game
over to my right.
I think it's gonna change the game for you once you start getting some more time with those guys.
Well, and I'm really curious to see how it handles different sounding amps, and whether or not I can really hear the sound of those amps influence, the sound of the headphones. So, yeah, it should be.
I think you will. Yeah, I think you definitely will. All right, cool. Let's see here. Let me get it to where I'm gonna go like this. Let's go back to the amp cam. All right, so with the amp cam, I would say my favorite amp so far that I've listened to the Radiance on would probably be the Lear 3 or the Asgard 3, or also just straight out of the balance connection out of the matrix-element-m-dac-amp so far. And did I also say the Jotunheim? The Jotunheim. So let me go through my notes. So basically, the Asgard takes up and gives you a little more punch in the overall sound. The Asgard 3 does with them. And it smooths out a little of those if you're sensitive to some of those vocal areas that, like John was talking about earlier, like they kind of come across a little too forward. It actually helps a bit with the vocals. So the Asgard 3 does. So I appreciated that feature of the Asgard 3. Then the Jotunheim doesn't do as much of that. So if you're sensitive to that area, the Jotunheim is more just kind of like detailed, but with great slam. It actually tightens up the slam a little bit on the Radiance, which I thought was pretty nice. A little bit more impact from it. The Lear 3 with the Radiance doesn't necessarily give you the same level of impact as the Asgard 3 or the Jotunheim does. However, it smooths a little bit, just a little bit with that tube. It gives you a little nice smoothing. So once again, it kind of does some of the helpful things that the Asgard does with some of those areas that may bother certain people. I didn't really find myself bothered by it much, but some people may hear different things, and this is what I was audibly hearing that these different amps can do. I felt the Echo 2 was too much. There's just, too much bass bloat personally for my tastes with the Echo 2, which makes quite a bit of sense if you really think about it. The Echo 2 is rated for 80 ohms to 600 ohms. So the impedance mismatching was on display for my ears. Now, could you get away with it on some music that doesn't have a lot of bass in the recording? Yes, you could. But it still wouldn't be my top choice for the Radiance as far as pairing. Now, the Clear MG, even though they're not perfectly matched from an impedance standpoint with 55 ohms of the Clear MG and the Echo 2, that actually is a lot more fun. You actually get a little bit more of a bass increase and a bass shelf and a little more warmth to that neutral headphone. That's actually quite awesome. And it brings it closer to the sound signature of like a Radiance, but with better staging, better openness, better, euphony and like kind of digging into the depth of the recording more. So that's the one I've been really like enjoying so far, is that pairing, and also with a Lear 3. So I would say the Radiance also sounds very good on my bedside rig with the balanced out of the Matrix i3 Mini Pro. It sounds great, and it's got more than enough juice for that. And all of those DACs that are built into these Matrix are pretty neutral, clean, but the treble isn't overdone with some Saber DACs in the past. So I'm really quite happy with those pairings. And what's cool about the Focal stuff is they're so easy to drive. You actually now can use a Matrix amp with these and have a good experience. Whereas if I was trying to run my ZMF Verte Opens or my ZMF Eolis or my 6XX off of a Matrix amp, even out of the balanced, I felt there was a lack there for me personally. So if you have a Matrix amp, with the DAC as a Roon endpoint, they do actually pair pretty decently and pretty well. They sound good. So I've also run the Radiance out of, you see all these little guys over here. I've also run it out of the Dragonfly Red, the BTR5, the BTR3, and the iFi Pro IDSD Micro Black Label. And all of them were enjoyable. In fact, the BTR5 is the one I did all my housework with. I just strapped that puppy on and did some laundry and listened to it while walking around the house, and it sounds great just from Bluetooth. So I was thoroughly impressed with the sound out of Bluetooth 5.0. And then the Dragonfly Red was also very enjoyable, just off of my phone and the Dragonfly. So the BTR3 wasn't as good as the BTR5 in my opinion. The BTR3 sounded a little warmer, so the BTR5 is a little bit cleaner, and I thought that was a better pairing personally. And then the IDSD Micro Black Label I also enjoyed because you can actually give it a little three-dimensional stage lift, which I thought benefited these headphones a little bit by flipping up the staging switch. But that's a pretty warm amp too, so it's gonna be to your tolerance levels. So awesome.
That's an interesting thing. I wonder if I go into Roon and I turn on crossfeed, whether or not these benefit from it. Because some headphones don't. Like the majority of the ZMFs don't. Empyrean certainly doesn't. The Teak could care less. But the HD650 on some tracks loves crossfeed.
Try it.
I'm glad to give that a shot.
I didn't try it on Roon, so I don't know how it works with Roon, but it was decent on the little IDSD iFi unit. So it had a little bit more space. All right, let's see. What do we got in the question world? Thanks, Scott. Appreciate you, buddy. As always, man. Thanks for your support. Let's see. Cool. Yes, man. Josh, you rocking the little BTR5 too? That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's for under $100 or right around $100, it's not a bad little Bluetooth. Not a bad little Bluetooth guy. You use it good with your Cost Porta Pros too, if you like those. All right. So other than the Echo, everything else was quite an acceptable play with the Focal Radiance. So, and I didn't try the Bottlehead, but I don't imagine the Bottlehead would have been a good match for it either, probably for similar reasons. But I didn't try it, but I would imagine it would be quite similar.
You're just not going to do yourself any favors through that.
No. So, and I kind of knew that going in with the Echo, but I was like, oh, I'll just do it because I know somebody's going to ask me, and I think Sleepy did. And I didn't feel like it was a good match. But with a Clear, it was a much better match. So let's go take it to the chat and let's see, and let's give it a 15-minute warning. I like to keep these to 2 hours or less if possible. So let's take it to the chat and see if you have any questions. And as a reminder, while we're waiting for those questions to come in, there is, once again, if we take a look, one left of the Focal Radiance open box at $1,032. So if you want to pick this up at a discount, save 20%. The link is at the beginning of this chat. Right now, if you scroll to the very top, it's the first link you'll see. Kind of like a behind the seen savings because I just saw that today before we started the stream. I was like, oh, dude, somebody might want to pick these up at a discount. So I'll just link it up. So that is there for you guys if you are interested. And then we'll see if we have any questions coming in about the Focal Radiance or the Clear MG. And if you guys, while we're waiting for those questions to come in, do us a solid, smash that like button for us, please. If you smash that like button, it really helps us to see the support, as well as for YouTube to help share this video with more people, because they know that the content is valuable to more people. So we appreciate it if you smash that like button. All right. So which hybrid amplifier would you recommend with the clears or the regular clears? Oh, I should also say I also listened to the Radiance with a pendant and the Clear MG with a ZMF pendant. My bad. How could I forget that? The only reason why I forgot it is because it's not in this room, because I'm filming B-roll of it right now for the review I'm doing on it. And it's in a different area. It's in my 2-channel area, because that's also an exceptionally, not just a great amp, but it's also a really good preamplifier into speakers with a little bit of that tube holographic love. Oh man, it's a dope preamp. So the off the 8 ohm tap off the ZMF pendant, both the Clear MG and the Radiance sound good. So that's something else out there for any ZMF pendant owners. Okay, so sorry, back to your question, Johnson. Which hybrid amplifier would you recommend with the clears? The regular clears. Great question. Let's throw that up there. So I liked, let me swap this around, and then the professor can also let us know his thoughts. So I actually really liked the Lear 3 was pretty good for me with the regular OG Clear, because I found that the OG Clear had tons of impact already. And even though the Lear 3 doesn't have, say, a ton of slam, like, you know, the like some of the other amps that I was just talking about, the let me get you back, Professor. I don't know what's going on here. 1 second, I'll pop it back up. But the Lear 3 with the OG Clear was actually pretty good sounding. And I think Christopher actually had that pairing, and I think he enjoyed it with one of his favorite tubes. I think it was the Sophia. Also, if you don't want to spend a ton of money, the Cavalli Tube Hybrid was also a fun play with the OG Clear from the hybrid realm. And then I'm trying to think of what other hybrids I put with it. The other liquid platinum wasn't too bad either, especially with the tubes that JB had sent me in. So
those are like unobtainium super ultra tubes, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I had the Clear at that time. So, but I would imagine that would be a good pairing if you're running balanced, because that has that signature would be a similar signature to some of the other amps that I described. So those are some of the ones I look at. The Lear 3 is usually always a safe bet for under $500. So, Professor, I'm going to try to flip it to you, and I'm going to fix the cameras here, and then you tell me what you think would be some of the hybrids that you think would pair well with the OG Clear. Now, I know you didn't own the OG Clear for long, did you? Or did you?
I had them for 3.5, almost a full month, 3.5 weeks, from a friend who just continued to fail to come by and pick them up. You know, so, oh darn, you know,
oh darn.
Situation.
Hey,
yeah,
could be worse.
Yeah. I have an issue with hybrid amps generally in the lower categories, lower price ranges. There are just some design features that I absolutely don't really care for on like the liquid platinum. The volume pot sucks. You know, there's some other things that doesn't jive with me as far as aesthetics go. Overall, though, as far as sound, I can't complain about that one. It's pretty good. The Lear 3 is good, but highly tube dependent on what kind of sound you actually do get out of it. So you got to know what.
I have our
or
favorite.
Do your homework on what.
I have our favorite one in there. I have our favorite tube in there. In fact, you recommended that tube to me.
Oh, that's got to be the Westinghouse then.
Westinghouse Black Label, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was a great recommendation. It's a good tube.
No, thank you. Yeah, so the Lear 3 I think is solid. It sounds different than the Platinum, and I would say it's um, synergistic to the Clear, I think, as far as how it can. Well, and this is a preference thing because I would want to bring the Clears, um,
Down a notch.
presentation down a notch. I would
Yeah.
want to, yeah, tame that just a little bit. And so I think the Lear 3 would be a good way to go. If you're not looking for that, then I would go liquid platinum. Um, Otherwise, I would suggest like the Tuba
Yeah.
T4 if you can get your hands on it, because that is a fantastic amp, uh, pretty much regardless of what you put with it. Um, I know that I don't know what the availability is on the Tuba, but I know the T4 is pretty much not being made anymore, so you'd have to look pre-owned market. And then as far as other hybrids, there aren't many I would suggest that are cheaper. Just straight up wouldn't.
Yeah. Cool. That's great. Hopefully we answered that question for you. Um, Johnson, appreciate that question. All right. And then
Oh, the
Leonardo.
CTH.
Yeah, CTH. That was one I said.
CTH. Oh, okay. Actually, it just popped back into my brain. The CTH might do pretty well with that, but I don't.
Yep. I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good because
Oh,
the
you did?
CTH, yeah, the CTH has like, it's got a pretty wide sounding stage for a $250 amp, or if you get it on sale, it's like 170 or
Mhm.
something. So it's got this width that I think benefited the Clears, because the Clear OGs, especially, felt like were even more intimate than the Clear MG. So I liked that extra width, and depending on
Mhm.
the DAC you pair it with, it actually was for a $250 less tube amp hybrid. I thought it was decent. So I
Mhm.
enjoyed it. All
Sorry,
right. No,
just
it's all
derailing.
good. No, not at all. So Leonardo said, let's see here. Would you suggest a change of pads? I replaced the pads with a Deconi Elite Sheepskin and tightened the bass and clarity. They heightened and tightened the bass and clarity. Okay, I think we don't know yet because we have yet to try it with other pads, but Professor has ordered, I think, 2 or 3 different pads to roll with it, and he's going to try it first, and he's going to see how they affect it, and I think then he will hopefully send them to me afterwards, and I'll give you some impressions maybe in the full review on how the pads change things when I film that video for the YouTube channel. So,
Mhm.
I think for the big thing for both of us, we kind of described earlier, changing the pads would have been, for the most part, about a comfort issue that we would like to have from these headphones. Whereas my ears don't touch the grills, and overall, the professor's ears touch the sides of the pads themselves. So, I think that's kind of where we would be with a pad swapping. But audibly, we don't know yet. So that'll be interesting to find out because I'm curious.
Yep, I have they're all Deconi pads, because I'm not paying $300 a pad from Focal. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it.
It's so much,
Um,
right? That's crazy.
yeah. Um, it is the Stellia replacement pads that Deconi makes. It is their hybrid pads as well as their suede, all suede, or do they call them velour? I don't know. But anyway, those are the three that
Yeah,
we've got coming in. Hopefully, one of them,
one of them
gets
will
these things
work.
off my ears. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so Grumpy, let's see. Grumpy had a question, recommendations on a Class A amp. Well, earlier I kind of said the Asgard 3 because the first 500 or 600 milliwatts is full Class A, and I actually really enjoyed it with the Radiance and the Clear MG so far. So for under $200, that's one. And then I am really, really looking forward to picking up the Burson 3 times performance, I believe it is, that I have on pre-order from headphones.com, which is I believe, full Class A topology amplifier, solid state. But I don't know. I don't know yet until I hear it. So I'm not sure. And I don't think, have you heard, you haven't heard this with any Class A yet either, because that RME or ADI, I mean, isn't Class A. So that's a tough recommendation for right now. So I would say that I've heard as of right now, the Asgard 3 is Class A for the first 600, 500, 600 milliwatts. And then I'd let you know about the Burson as soon as I get it. Grumpy. I don't know when we're going to get it, though. It's coming from Australia, so that process takes time. But maybe in the next couple of weeks I should have that, and I'll be able to give some impressions on that. Let's see. Leonardo, thanks. Comfort was an issue for me too, but the sonic change was improved. Oh, cool. So you actually, and which one, Leonardo, which one was your favorite sonic improvement? Which ones did you get again? Drop that into the chat because I'd like to know. Oh, the Elite Sheepskin. I see. The Elite Sheepskin heightened and tightened the bass and clarity. Well, that'll be cool. I'm looking forward to hearing that. So Mauricio popped in. Hey, Mauricio, good to see you, man. Let's see. How does the Radiance have similar tonality of the Eolis? We talked about this a little bit. The professor did in the comparison portion. So not really, right? There's some warmth.
No, not really.
There's a little bit of warmth, right? But the overall tonality is different. You have true tonality of, focal timbre, if you will, energetic, a bit more forward presentation, than you do with the Eolis. Based on what Professor was saying earlier, you have a little bit more of a mid-bass lift with the Eolis, and you have more of a sub-bass lift with the Radiance. So, they're not going to be the same from a tonality perspective.
It's been 4 or 5 months since I owned an iCAN, but I would say the iCAN is actually probably a closer comparison to these than the Aeolus is for sure.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. So you get that rumble, sub-bass rumble of the iCAN.
Right. Yeah.
The Playmate 2 is interesting for its price. Yeah. The Burson stuff is interesting to me. I can't wait to try it out. No problem, Grumpy. Of course, man. Anytime. Oh, man. Assign a superhero. Jeez. I don't know how to assign a superhero name to each of my amps. Oh, goodness gracious. I would have to think about that, man. That's a great question, though. I don't know. I really don't. But I will think about that for sure. I'll think about that. Give me some time on that one because I do love comic books and I love superheroes. I have a pretty decent sized comic book collection. I mean, not as much as some collectors probably out there, but I never got rid of any of my comics that I started collecting as a 7th grader. I still have them all. So obviously you see them in some of my videos. I got a Wolverine and a Spider-Man hanging up there. You can't see it right now on the amp cam, but they're sitting up there, and I'm actually going to start framing a few more and putting them up because I got like the Terminator 1, Predator 1. Like I lived in Portland, so Dark Horse Comics, I don't know where they're based now, but they were based in Portland. So I was able to get Dark Horse Comics in a limited fashion. Pretty cool because they were out of Portland at the time. And then I collected a lot of the Marvel stuff and DC stuff, and also gosh, I can't remember the other one's slipping my mind right now. Valiant. I also collected some Valiant comics as well. So, and I have Spawn #1 too, and I have like Spawn 1 through like I don't know how many. I really love McFarlane as an artist. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting off topic. Let's see. SW51. What do you think? Would this pair well with a Radiance SW51? I haven't heard that amp, but I know the professor has.
I think he's asking about the shortest wave 51. The question above that.
Oh, okay. Let me throw that up there.
That this is for electrostatic headphones? No, it's not. It's for normal headphones.
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah, SW51, regular 1/4-inch headphone jack. As far as pairing with these, I don't know what the output impedance is of an SW51. Either way, though, I'd like the SW51 that it's just a really easy amp to recommend to just about anybody. And as far as that email address is, I'd have to go digging through a couple PMs on a different forum right now to pull up that. So maybe I can drop it in the comments once the stream's over.
Great idea. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
And then Johnson, which is your favorite of all the Focal? I think Professor said currently right now the Radiance is his favorite, correct?
Yes. Take that with a grain of salt, though. I'm not a Utopia fanboy. I don't like it.
Yeah. No, but that's cool. You have your preferences. I think for me, I think my favorite right now is probably the Focal Clear MG Johnson, because I can make the Focal Clear MG sound like the Radiance, but better with the Echo 2. So, right? All about
That intrigues me.
all about the synergy, right? So taking and placing. So I got the matrix-element-m-dac as the DAC, which is essentially the X-Saber Pro DAC, which is clean, insightful, decent width, like excellent imaging, and very fast. And then I put that with its polar opposite, which is the Echo 2. I shouldn't say polar opposite, but it's definitely slower, right? Echo 2.
Yeah.
And then I take the Focal Clear, which is pure or pretty darn close to neutrality, but with still speed and impact. And it's pretty friggin' fun. Listen, it's fun. There's a little bit of maybe a tiny bit of bass, like, I wouldn't call it bloat, but it definitely brings up the bass a lot compared to what you would hear off of a solid state amp, which is why I like it, right? So, so I would say for me right now, it's the Clear MG off of the Echo 2, off of the matrix-element-m. Now take that with a grain of salt. I've only had the Echo for a short time. Could be new toy syndrome, but it definitely does something pretty cool with the Clear MG. So that's my current favorite right now. And then I would say these are second. These are definitely second. And they're my favorite closeback I've heard yet. I'm only missing the Stellia and the Celestia, and the Celestia should be here soon. But I think I would lean, based on just reading the frequency charts, that I would lean more towards the Radiance or the Stellia as a closeback for my personal tastes. Even though the frequency charts of the Celestia are kind of more neutral, it's still missing some of the bass for me, which kind of brings me and reminds me back to the Alesia. And it was really great for classical orchestral, but it just didn't have enough bass for everything else I listened to.
No. If you're looking for a good setup, you say you're new to this level of equipment, and the only thing you use now is a Chord Mojo with your Clear MGs. Take a look at the Echo and take a look at a nice the Modius or something like that, or
Yeah,
the
Modius.
Modi. Yeah, something like that can get you into the game for not much and sound really, really good. So.
Yep, that's another good recommendation. I mean, the Chord Mojo, I mean, it was a long time ago when I heard that, but that wasn't a bad little unit, though. I mean,
yeah, it's not.
So especially if you like that chord sound, I wouldn't not enjoy that one, because it's a nice little portable guy. It's always nice to have at least one that you can take with you, or smaller form factor. Let's see. So, my phone. Yeah, and I also, if you're talking the Clear MG, also the Asgard 3 is for $200 is also another one, because let's see, yeah, because you're saying Focal Clears, and there's something I like about the Asgard 3 because it's a little bit more, it can be a little smoother than the Jot 2, from what I hear. The Jot 2 pairs better with maybe even like these Radiances in some cases, or a darker headphone, because it's a little bit more neutral sounding. But take that for what it's worth, because it's also my hearing and what I hear. But those are my impressions. Let's see. Radiance Verte closed. I can't answer this. But yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of hard to. You're talking what, almost $3,000 for that headphone, $2,700 or more, versus $1,300, but performance-wise.
Price aside, Verte closed all day long, twice on Sundays.
Yeah, I didn't even have to guess on that one. But yeah, it's still a great question, Christopher, because for other people out there, I'll pop it back up there for other people out there that are thinking, hey, should I get this or the Verte closed? And do you have the budget? Well, there you go. There's your answer. There is, on the flip side of that coin, though, the Verte close is not something I would take with me anywhere, portable-wise, or the Verte open. They're just too beautiful. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't risk that. Like, my Vertes are like, just, they're gorgeous. I don't want to take those and risk damaging the wood grain or any of the metal fittings. Like, and these are beautiful.
Can you imagine dropping the wood cup on a ZMF on concrete?
Oh my God. No, I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't. It would be devastating. And I mean, these are beautiful too, and I wouldn't want to damage these either. but I feel like the ZMFs, I don't know, man. There's just something, I don't know. I just can't do it. And plus, and not only that, from a portability standpoint, the ZMFs are much harder to drive. So there's some advantages, I think, for a closed back for somebody that is using this for travel versus like a Verite close. But if you're going all out listening, I think Professor said it best, like twice on Sunday or however you said it. It was well said. So
all day long and twice on Sundays, something like that.
Sambo, yeah, he said the Echo 2 and Modius, and I said the Asgard 3. And what I'll do, buddy, is I'll drop some links for you after the video to each of those, so you can kind of check them out. But the Echo 2 right now has been a very fun pairing for me with a clear MG as well as the Asgard. I haven't heard the Modius. The Modius, to my understanding, is more of their neutral sound signature, I believe, correct? Of shit stuff? If they're well measured. It's like, so they're more well measuring. So the reason why I would say maybe look at the Asgard 3 or say the Echo 2 with a clear MG, because the clear already is very neutral sounding. So if you like a little flavor in your music, the Asgard 3 might give you some of that, or the Echo 2 definitely gives you that flavor. Let's see, Sheldon, great question, buddy. How's the Radiance resistance to scratching on that black? No clue. I've been super careful with these so far, so I can't speak to that yet. It's hard to say.
Get a pair and take an ice pick to it and let us know.
Oh God. Oh jeez. Yeah.
Well, don't do that. Okay.
Yeah, don't do that. I don't want to test it either. I don't want to damage these. But it's a good question, because if you're taking it portable and on the road with you, there's a good chance that you may have a knock or two somewhere in your travels. So, Johnson, will you ever recommend having more than one DAC? Yeah, I've got,
Yes.
I'm going to sound like a goofball, but I've got like 4 or 5. So, but I review stuff, and this is part of like what I do. So, but I think even for the casual listener, at least maybe 2, right? Just to hear differences in sonic signatures between them. What do you think, Professor?
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's synergy, right? So there are some R to R DACs that match up with some amplifiers that sound so good. I mean, the Sonnet Morpheus, for example, going through the ECP3F, heaven, loved it. It was fantastic. I would not put the ECP3F on a TT2, for example. I think you're just running way too lean at that point, as far as sound signatures go. So, yeah, there's a use case for having more than one DAC. That being said, I think it is the one part of the chain that you can probably settle on having one, and trying to use it for as many things as you can. Just make sure that it's a nice, well-rounded DAC. The Matrix line does very good. The X Saber Pro, for example, all of their elements that they have out, if you want streaming capabilities, but I think the X Saber Pro is probably one of the best, Saber DACs out. It is the best Saber DAC out there.
Actually. I love it. Like I was so worried about getting it, and I think I talked to you about it because you had tried it, and I said, should I try it? I mean, I could get one, should I do it? And you're like, yeah, I like that one. Try it out. And I'm glad I did, because it's one of my favorite DACs, not just from a Saber DAC. It's like one of my favorite DACs I've heard. I enjoyed it. So
right.
It's very good.
And how did you like it compared to your like Bifrost 2? I mean, there are definite differences between the two, right? I suppose it on chain, but yeah.
Yeah, I liked the Bifrost 2 as well. What I like about the X Saber is I like to take a approach. I think we talked about this on the Synergy. I like to take an approach with more neutral DACs and then synergize with the headphone and the amp more so. So I try to just go for more detail with the DAC and more imaging and more space. And I also like the fact that it has filters. For me, I do hear an audible difference between filters, and I like to change the filters based on the amps that I'm using, and headphones. And I think that Sheldon and I talk about this a little bit, because he has the matrix-element-X as well. And I like that. And so what is cool though about the Bifrost 2 is it's less than $1,000 for one, and it is generally overall very good sounding, and it synergizes pretty well with most gear, and there's no filters to worry about. But I think under $1,000, the Bifrost is really hard to beat. I thought the D90 was also pretty enjoyable for under $1,000, or the Matrix iMini 3 Pro, if you like room implementation. My bedside rig also sounds very good for under $1,000. So, you know, but the Bifrost is well loved by, I haven't met many people that didn't love the sound of the Bifrost, and I thoroughly loved it. And it sounds exceptionally great, and I would love to hear its bigger brother, the Yigi, one day, to see, you know, off of audio memory, what are the differences, you know. But I love what Shite Audio does with their DACs. They do good work. Let's see. You're welcome, Sambo. Yeah, man, hit me up. Like I said, hit me up at my website. Drop me a connect on there, and we'll talk more about the Clear MG and your options, man, because I'd love to help you, because I mean, it's basically what I'm doing right now too. I'm synergizing my Clear MG and finding what I like, and I'd love to help you more, man. So hit me up. Mauricio, I like that name. Mauricio, do you think the VO is a better match connected directly to the Hugo TT2 versus the Radiance? I don't have the TT2 right now, and I have sent it back to its wonderful owner, JB. Shout out, JB. Love you, man. Thanks for your time with that amp deck. So I can't say, because I would have to just tell you what I would estimate and say without having that gear on hand. But Tyler, a friend of our channel, Tyler's Eclectic. You could check out his YouTube channel. He had the Radiance in for a live stream. He also had the VO or the VC, and he probably may have talked a little bit about comparisons and sound impressions. So I'd highly recommend checking out one of our friends of the channel and see if he talked about that in his Radiance stream. But off the top of my head, I don't know. It's a tough one, man, without knowing or doing some side-by-side comparison between them.
And it depends on preference. For me, and I'm just imagining what the TT2 sounds like based off of my previous chord experience with, like, you know, the Hugo, you know, the other ones. And I've heard a Chord Dave, which was good, crazy priced, but yeah. I'd imagine that the Verite Open might do a little bit better, because I think that the Radiance in most of the Focal, like the clears and all that, it's you're adding on too much of a good thing, right? They kind of have the same characteristics, and they might amplify that. It might be too much, but if that's what you like, that might be what you want to go for. So preference could ruin any answer we give you, really.
Yeah,
it depends on what you want.
That's it. It's really going to be preference related. And you know, the one thing I would think about too, Mauricio, is I think personally, this is just my opinion, but I think personally, all of ZMF stuff shines when it's on a tube amp. So as much as I loved the Chord TT2, thinking back to the Verite Open in my time with the Chord TT2, and it sounded great off of directly plugged at the Chord TT2, what really shined for me with any ZMF stuff, and then using the Chord TT2 as a DAC only, was when I put it into the ZMF Pendant, or when I put it into the Mogwai OG, or when I put it into the Nautilus. You know, the Verite Open takes to tubes like peanut butter does to jelly. Like, I mean, those two things are just meant to be together. And if you ever watch a stream with the amazing Zach, and you look at how many tube amplifiers he's got sitting in his workshop, it's significant. It's more tube amps than all of us put, you know, well, maybe not all of us put together, but definitely more than us, us two on this stream. And we're talking like some of the coolest tube amps you can get.
Yeah.
So with that being said, if he's utilizing those and listening to his own gear on those, that has to factor into your thought process with what he believes, you know, he's creating a sound for his headphones. And so I believe ZMF headphones deserve to be fed proper tube amplification. And once you hear them off a proper tube amplification, you don't ever want to go back to solid state with a ZMF headphone. At least that's my take on it. So I would say you'd be better off ZMFing with a tube amp. But the Cord TT2 DAC could be, as a DAC, could be exceptional. And the Cord TT2 as an amp is quite good, you know, but I never heard it with a Radiance, so I just really don't know. Let's see. Yes, Ambo, it can get complicated, but it doesn't have to be, and that's why we're here. We wanted this process to be fun because we all started somewhere, and you know, we had to dig into forums mostly and read in forums. And the beauty of YouTube is you can jump on a stream and talk to some people that have, you know, have some experience and been doing it, and just have some fun and learn some things hopefully. And that's what it's all about, community and just having a good time learning together. Let's see, John, how did the Bifrost 2 multi-bit pair with the Fonitor XE? I mean, okay, here's the deal. I don't really love the Fonitor XE, so I have to get that out of the way. I love it for some things. Like if I was editing a video, and I mentioned this in my review, if I'm editing a video or if you were mixing and mastering, I thought it was an exceptional amp. I thought it staged exceptionally well. It's so clean, the imaging was so precise, and I really liked the crossfeed feature. But for enjoyment listening, and I hope that came across in a way that wasn't bashing the amp, because I don't think it's an amp that I would bash. It's a beautiful piece of craftsmanship, and for what SPL does, their field is mixing and mastering. That's what they're known for. But if you're talking enjoyment listening, how does it pair with the Bifrost 2, which I'm assuming the question is based around enjoyment listening? I mean, it's okay, but I think you need even a warmer DAC than the Bifrost 2 for the Fonitor XE. And I know you had that for a while, Professor. So from a purely, once again, let's get this from a purely enjoyment listening standpoint, not mixing and mastering or video editing, which is where that amp has its strengths. What do you think? What would it take as far as a DAC to help chill out its squeaky clean cleanliness?
There's only a few DACs that come to mind, and they would probably be, you know, the actual ladder resistor R kind of DACs.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And probably, and I haven't heard the MADAC yet, but probably not even along the lines of the MADAC, because the May is too good of an R2R to really synergize well with that. I mean, if you did a classic implementation of a inexpensive like AKM chip, some of the more velvety sounding ones might kind of tone that out. But honestly, I think just don't try to change the nature of things too much when in your chain, right? If the amp is just way too clean and it's just too much wire with gain, basically, that you can't enjoy it, then don't. And so I sold it. Yeah.
And the other caveat I'll throw in there too is that if you had really, really dark headphones, the Fonitor might help that. But I've been talking, they need to be dark, like you can't see. So that's one thing. And then the other thing too is the manufacturer themselves tells you something by the DACs that they put inside of their amps when they choose to. And it is an AKM DAC for that matter. It's a 4493. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an AKM chip. And I primarily tested, when I reviewed the Fonitor XE, I tested and reviewed it with the Topping D90, and I tested it with their standard filter, and then I tested it with the slow roll-off filter I liked, and the slow roll-off filter was, with that Topping D90, was the best bet, and I thought it sounded better than the Bifrost even, because it was just slower. Like, and I just felt like it needed that. So, because the Bifrost is still like it's a very detailed DAC. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, people think that the Bifrost is just warm and fuzzy. Yeah, you got a little warmer lower end out of it, sure. And I like that part of it. And you got really cool staging and holographic staging the way it does it, but it's not necessarily like a like overly warm DAC, like, you know,
right,
some of these R2R ladder DACs are. So, you know, the traditional like ones like Professor was just talking about. So, I hope that answered your question, John. I hope that was suffice. I didn't know getting a good. Yeah, okay. I did get that one. Synergy is everything. Yeah, Christopher, it really is. Synergy is everything. So, and you could take that Phonitor XE and put it with the right headphones, and it's going to sound probably amazing in your chain if you have the right synergy. But if you don't, another thing too, you could take a tube preamplifier and lay it over the top of the Phonitor, and you could create a synergistic sound that way too. So there's other things you could do if that's already something you own and you use it for multi-purpose. Like if you use it for mixing and mastering, because that's what you do, or video editing, but then you want to use it for enjoyment too, and you just love those few meters, like when you're listening, which are really cool. You could run a preamp into it with its tubey, and you might get a sound that you like out of it. Let's see, Ikoria. Valhalla 2 with a Bifrost 2 for Eolis. Too warm? Will Shite Audio come out with 3S soon? I don't hear much about. Hard to say, man. Anything we say would be pure speculation. But the professor, I'm going to add this question. The professor does have experience with the Valhalla 2, so I'll let him field that question with a Bifrost. How do you think it would do?
Valhalla, I don't think it would do bad, but I think there are better tube amps for the Aeolus, to be honest with you. As mid-focused, I guess you could call the Aeolus, as mid-focused as it is, it doesn't pair badly with mid-focused tube amps. I honestly would go with the Bottlehead Crack. I've been enjoying that combination for so long.
So good.
With
the speedball. It really is. Speedball.
Yeah, with the speedball, yeah. But I mean, you get a good little like Brimar tube, or even an Amprix, or there's a number of tubes that work really well on the Crack. You have to really like warm sound if you could slap a Mullard in there, though. Just a word of warning. Things like that. So I would recommend the Crack over the Valhalla 2 just about every day. Just about every single occasion. There are a few things that I think the Valhalla 2 do synergize better with as far as headphones go. The 650s, not bad with them. I'm trying to think of headphones that actually do better on the Valhalla.
Something darker, right? Probably a darker
headphone. Your darker headphones, but even still then, I think the Crack can be made to service that too.
Yeah, with the right tube. Yeah.
Yeah. I might be a little biased, though. I just like the Crack that much.
I think the Bottlehead Crack. I think the Bottlehead Crack is exceptional with the Eolis and the Verite Open. I think the Bottlehead Crack for under $1,000. Well, here's going to be the interesting one. So this Echo 2 that I picked up from headphones.com I've been listening to it mostly with the Clear because that's the newest headphone I have in, but I briefly listened to it with the Eolis and the Verite Open, and there's something there. So I need more time with it, but I think my comparison is really going to be between primarily the Bottlehead Crack and this Echo 2 because they're both OTL amps, and they're similar price. I mean, the Echo 2 is a little more expensive, but if you have it built, let's say the Bottlehead Crack, if you have it built, you're closer to the price of the Echo 2. And the Echo 2 has some features in it that the Bottlehead Crack doesn't have, such as 3 inputs and a preamplifier, which could be really cool to do what we were talking about earlier. If you have a solid state amp that runs better with planars, but you want to get a little bit of flavor into it, something like that. So it'll be an interesting comparison, and I think I'll try to, when I do, because that'll probably be the next live stream, my initial impressions of the Echo 2. I'll try to talk about that a little bit in that comparison. But I love the Bottlehead Crack. With ZMF, the Bottlehead Crack, I mean, right now, under $1,000, that's the sweet spot. Thanks, John. I appreciate it. I try to wear this beard as nice as I can. PB&J, yes. PB&J, I haven't had one in a while. I do love my PB&J. Let's see. John, it sounds like John said that Valhalla's going to be discontinued, he said. Good to know. Yeah, I was unaware. Go ahead, buddy.
I was going to say we're coming up on the
we're
30 minutes after you put a 15-minute warning out.
So let's take our last questions, guys. Thank you so much. Nighthawk dark. Yeah, Nighthawk is super dark. All right, cool. And awesome.
HD800 with Valhalla 2 and Sonar works. I'd imagine that would definitely work, but that's the point of SonarWorks, right? Is to fix everything in the chain. I mean, I like SonarWorks; it's fun to play with. Um, anyway,
No, it's great.
I saw that, and it just the idea popped in my mind. I was kind of toying with it mentally for a second.
Yeah,
But
I haven't really played with it, so I can't speak to it. So
uh,
we'll take the last question from the last for the last question from the last Rhino. How do you like that play on words? So basically, my experience has been the professor recommended a great place is Jesse Brent Tubes is a great place to get tubes, and then I've picked up tubes from the Tube Depot. I picked up tubes from Upscale Audio. Those are the three places I picked up. I picked up tubes as well from eBay, but you got to be a little careful with that. So, but you can get a bad tube from anywhere. I got a bad tube from Upscale too, as well, and I'm working on that with them. So it can happen. So you just gotta wherever you get it from. Hopefully you make sure not hopefully make sure you get a return policy of some kind. So
yeah,
that way, if you get a bunk tube, you're not stuck with it because they can get expensive. So
I absolutely abhor buying any tube from eBay. Period. Unless it's I don't know a $10 cheapie, and if I get scammed, then you know what I'm out $10. Who cares? Um, but when it comes to your high quality tubes, this is the one I'm going to live with for the next 5 years in my amp. I like to go with people who have this fantastic reputation, like Brent Jesse. I like to see that they have some actual knowledge of tubes and how they sound, which is another reason why if you go to YouTube and you look at Upscale Audio's feed, I mean they're there to sell it to you on their videos, but they have an idea and an understanding of what these tubes are, what they're worth, why they are worth that because of how they sound, things like that. So that's why I like Upscale Audio. Generally, you're paying a bit more going
you
there.
are. Yep.
Yeah, there are some other places that I've bought some inexpensive tubes from. Viva Tubes seem to be fairly reputable. Tube
Yeah,
Monger,
and
things like that. So
you can find Viva tubes on eBay too as well. So if you don't go
yeah,
direct, so hey Christopher, thanks man for the super chat. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody that supported today, and I appreciate that. Yes, happy Easter to you weekend as well. We're gonna do some Easter egg hunting. Yeah, tomorrow in my backyard. That's what I got to do is clean the house for my little munchkin and get ready. We're gonna hide eggs everywhere. It's gonna be fun. Beautiful weekend, beautiful weather. Thank you again for your support, Christopher. Can't, like I said earlier, I can't do it without your guys' support. Well, with that, I think we have gone over the 2 hours, and I just want to first thank you, Professor, for always bringing your knowledge and you articulate so well your experience of audio to both me and to the viewers and to people on the forum, and it's invaluable. And I really appreciate you, and I just want to thank you for that, seriously.
I
And then,
appreciate the praise, man.
of course,
I thank
it's
you.
it's honest praise. I'm not just blowing smoke. I believe that what I say is true. And then I want to thank everybody out there in YouTube land, all of the supporters. Once again, we're trying to build a community here that isn't about measurements, isn't about tubes, it's not about anything. It's just about a love of audio, and we accept everybody into this hobby. And we have everybody's gonna have an opinion, and that's okay. So let's just make sure we respect people's opinions and support. We won't always agree, but that doesn't mean we have to fight about it. And that's what we're trying to create here is just a place that we can enjoy audio together and hopefully learn together. Twin Gwyn, thanks man. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Brody. Thanks for your support. And Joe, thanks for picking up my amp and DAC and supporting the channel that way. After I review gear, I have to move it along so I can keep purchasing new gear. And Joe supported my channel by doing that and supported me. I appreciate you, brother. Last Rhino, Akoria, John, Sheldon. There's so many of you. I'm just going to read a few more. Mauricio, Sambo, all of you guys. I mean, I can't go through all the names. I appreciate everybody that joined us. Go ahead, buddy.
To everybody helping this guy out, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you, Marcelo, because, I have a lot of fun with this. And like I said, I don't consider myself an expert. I just, like talking about stuff. But anyway, so thanks for having me on. And I do have to run. have a family commitment, so I gotta go.
We're gonna close it up now. All right, guys. Thank you with that as always. Much love. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and thanks again for joining. Peace.